does Pedro Martinez symbolize the Mets? Their resurgence, their triumphs. And as Pedro was idolized in New York, he also symbolized heartache. Injuries cut short Pedro's impact on the New York Mets. Now today, Pedro returns to Flushing in an enemy uniform. At Citi Field in New York, Pick Sports presents New York Mets baseball. Today the Mets play the Philadelphia Phillies. And a pleasant good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Citi Field. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling with you today as the Mets play the third game of their four-game series against the Phillies. The teams have split the first two. Last night, nostalgia with the 69 Mets being honored. Today, nostalgia of a different type. Pedro Martinez, a future Hall of Famer, who won only 32 games in 4 years as a Met, and yet had an impact far beyond those numbers, returns to face the Mets as a member of the Phillies.
So you're right, Gary. Only 32 and 23 as a New York Met, but also was such a fixture in getting other players to come to the New York Mets, now trying to revitalize his career. He talked many times about ending his career last year with the Mets. Now he left on a sad and sour note. He wanted one more shot at the title, and he's trying to do it with the Philadelphia Phillies.
When Pedro arrived in 2005, signing that big 4-year, $53 million contract, it symbolized a new commitment that the Mets were making to winning. He had a big year for the Mets in 2005. In 2006, he was there as the Mets had their best year in this decade since their World Series appearance in 2000. But the last two seasons were troubled ones, injured ones for Pedro. And for half a season this year, he couldn't find employment. But now here he is making his third start for the Phillies.
Well, you know, it was pretty interesting listening to him talk the other day. He really was discussing that he wanted one more shot to come back with the Mets and have a chance to really end on a real happy note. That did not work out. Probably better for him that it did not work out. And now he's coming to the Philadelphia Phillies, of course, who look like they're going to win the National League East, and a chance for him to pitch in the postseason. He has pitched really 1.5 games, Gary. One game he started in Chicago that he went 5 innings. The second game was shortened because of a rain delay, but he has looked very good so far, and the Philadelphia Phillies are happy with their signing.
And interestingly enough, Pedro's opponent this afternoon will be a young pitcher that he kind of mentored while he was with the Mets, Oliver Perez, who's kind of stepped backwards since Pedro's influence began to wane.
He really has. It started in spring training for Oliver, where he just could not get his feet wet after coming back from the World Baseball Classic. There's been stops and starts. Of course, we're going to have to watch the right knee, which has been a problem all season long, and especially in the last couple of starts. So Oliver Perez hoping to have a big start against his mentor.
And so it's Pedro Martinez making his return to Flushing, stepping onto the Citi Field playing surface for the first time. Mets and Phillies continue their series as we roll into the game this afternoon.
I have never said
a smart way to keep moving forward. By Verizon Fios, over 100 HD channels and the fastest internet. This is Fios. This is big. By BP, help your car run younger for longer. Try BP with Invigorate. By Capital One Bank, what's in your wallet? And by Audi and your local Tri-State Audi dealers. Visit tristateaudidealers.com. Follow the Mets on your iPhone and iPod Touch with MLB.com. At Bat 2009, featuring play-by-play, video highlights, and live audio broadcasts. Visit Mets.com on your iPhone or iPod Touch to purchase. Who's Hot is brought to you by Halloween 2 in theaters August 28th. Chris Carpenter maybe now the front runner for the Cy Young in the National League. 14-3, 2.16 despite missing 5 weeks earlier in the season. David Ortiz, after his rough start, looks like a different player now in a hot streak for the Red Sox, who blasted the Yankees 14-1 yesterday. And Aaron Rowan, since leaving Citi Field, has gone on a hot streak for the San Francisco Giants, who now trail the Rockies by 2 games in the NL wild card. Oliver Perez getting ready to take the mound here at Citi Field against a team that he pitched extraordinarily well against last year. Can he do it again? First pitch coming up.
Obviously a rhetorical.
Eight get Fios. The SAP portion of today's broadcast is brought to you by LATV, the Picks digital alternative. Check out the variety LATV has to offer. Here's your starting lineup for the Phillies, brought to you by Toyota, a smart way to keep moving forward. Day off for Chase Utley. That will help the Mets breathe a little easier. Utley has more home runs against the Mets than any player in the majors this year. But Jason Worth slides into that 3-hole. He's got 28 home runs of his own. Eric Bruntlett gets the rare start at second base.
Well, Oliver Perez gets the start today. You can see that record in that high ERA. He's 58 and 63 lifetime. And they're going to be really watching that right knee because he tweaked it in his last start, of course, covering first base. And with his new motion of pausing, they want to make sure that he's strong enough to go 5 or 6 innings. And look at the defense, brought to you by ChevyOffers.com. You see it in the outfield. It's 8 outfield assists. Pagan with 4, Sullivan with 1, Francoeur with 3, Tatis with his 10th start at third base. 13 start in left field this season for Sullivan. Hernandez, Castillo, and Murphy. And Snyder getting the job catching today as Pedro Martinez awaits his turn on the mound.
New ballpark for Pedro, who said that He wanted to return to his beloved Shea. Not too many people who were not fans of the New York Mets have ever referred to Shea Stadium in that way.
Immortal beloved now.
Mets and Phillies on a cloudy Sunday afternoon. They have sunglasses even for cloudy days. And Jimmy Rollins is sporting the amber as he gets ready to get things started for Philadelphia.
That's the top of the food chain right there, sunglasses, Gary. If you're a September call-up or a guy who comes up in middle season, you don't get those kind of sunglasses. You got to be Jimmy Rollins.
Got to be an MVP.
Yes.
Well, the Phillies begin the day with a 6.5 game lead in the National League East over both the Braves and the Marlins, who have split the first 2 games of their series. They'll have Ricky Nolasco going up against Derek Lowe in Atlanta this afternoon. Rollins hitting at .243, but he's been hot for the better part of a month and a half. And he's 2 for 10 in this series as he gets set to face Oliver Perez, and we are ready to go. And Ollie's first pitch, a fastball in for a strike. Rollins has a couple of home runs against Perez in his career in 26 career at bats, and he pulls one foul, and Ollie's ahead 0-2. Ollie came out throwing strikes in his last start against the Braves. In fact, for only the second time this year, he did not walk the leadoff hitter in any inning. That was a step in the right direction. In fact, he only walked 1 in his 5 innings of work, after averaging nearly a walk per inning coming into that start. 0-2 to Rollins, up and away. Last year, Ollie made 4 starts against the Phillies, and in those 4 starts allowed a total of 1 earned run. That's how dominant he was against Philadelphia. And the slider pulled foul. But this year, he went to the disabled list after a dreadful start in Philadelphia on the 2nd of May, in which he walked 6 batters in 2 1/3 innings. And it was after that start that he was initially shoved to the bullpen and then put on the disabled list.
And don't forget, one of the reasons that Oliver was signed to that long-term contract was his work against the National League East, especially the Philadelphia Phillies.
Well, he had pitched well against the Braves, pitched well against the Phillies, and pitched well against the Yankees. And all those things have stood in Ollie's stead. And, you know, over the last couple of years, we talked often about the fact that Ollie seemed to pitch better against the better teams. This year, though, in a stop and start season, it's been difficult for him against just about everybody.
Well, after winning 25 games the last couple of seasons for the Mets, and like you said, Gary, a little stop and start season for him this year. This is every start is really important for him down the stretch, because he has to get himself into a position where next season he does not allow this to happen, to get off to that slow start.
Working hard against Rollins is 2-2.
I think he's going to have to work on his physical conditioning more to make sure that that knee is sound, and come into spring training ready for bear.
This will be the 8th pitch of the at-bat to Rollins, leading off the game. And he drives it down the left field line. That'll bury into the corner. Sullivan plays it nicely off the wall, but Rollins tiptoeing into second easily with a leadoff double. 33rd double of the year for Jimmy Rollins.
Well, tried to come inside 3 or 4 different times with the fastball. This one missing just a little bit, but Rollins was waiting for that fastball. Not a bad pitch, but when you throw 4, 5, 6 pitches in the same spot, big league hitters will make the adjustment. Rollins did.
So a runner at second and nobody out, and now Shane Victorino. Victorino 1 for 7 in this series, hitting a .312 on the year. And trying to bunt. It's unusual for Victorino.
Very interesting. Victorino can handle a bat, usually can push that ball to the right side.
just been swinging the bat so well this year. It surprises you to see him trying to lay one down.
The only reason I would think is that maybe this is only the 10th start for Tatis at third, maybe trying to push that ball his way.
It's certainly not a case of the Phillies playing for one run early. That doesn't make any sense, not with Pedro on the mound, who's still at this point an untested commodity.
And also the firepower that they have. I mean, they have the ability to hit the 2 or 3 run home run at any time.
Jason Worth hitting third in the order today, with Chase Utley getting the day off.
He's matched his number in home runs, hasn't he? Wow.
And a strike on the inside to Victorino, 1-2. Chase Utley, who has been such a thorn in the Mets side this year. 6 home runs against the Mets this season, 4 of them here at Citi Field. Just inside, 2-2.
It was interesting, his comment. They asked him about playing in this big ballpark, Citi Field, and he goes, you know what, I don't worry about what ballpark I'm hitting in. If I center the ball, I feel like I can hit it out of any park.
Well, he's also been smart enough to hit it down the line here.
That's right.
Which is the available part of the park for home runs. Two, fouled away. Well, no Met has hit more than 5 home runs at Citi Field. And there have been a couple of visiting players, Utley and Mark Reynolds, who've hit 4. Of course, Reynolds did it only 3 games.
That's right. That's right. He sat out that one Saturday game in a 4-game stretch here.
I would say that gives him a leg up. Hernandez makes a break to the bag, but Ali just steps off.
You know, it's interesting that Hernandez is spending a lot of time keeping Rollins in check. But in doing that, he really has opened up that hole. So Ali does a lot of pitching inside, right in the hitter more apt to pull. That leaves that hole open.
2-2 to Victorino, and it's blown away. A full count with Worth on deck. Fouled at the plate.
Well, I think, Gary, when you look at the Philadelphia Phillies, they're really epitomized by Shane Victorino. Played tough 27 outs, scrappy, tough at bats.
They're playing a very scrappy first out.
Yes, they are, aren't they?
I mean, Rollins had an 8-pitch at bat. This will be the 8th pitch to Victorino. Talk about working a pitch count against an opposing starter. Ball 4, and the first 2 men are on. Well, Ali kept trying to come inside to Victorino, but he missed with a 3-2 fastball, and now Jason Worth will come up with 2 men on. There have been throughout this series, and there are particularly today, a lot of Phillies fans who've made their way up the turnpike. Used to be you'd see more Met fans at Philly games. Now, with all the success the Phillies have enjoyed the last few years, that has turned around. So a chance for the Phillies to get off to a big start, first and second and nobody out, and Worth, who's 2 for 8 in this series with a pair of doubles. And he takes a slider on the inside corner for a strike. Worth hitting third today, hitting .350 over his last 10 games. Came into the series on a home run binge. Now is 28 for the year. That's 7th in the National League.
It's the 13th time he's hit in that 3rd slot. Usually when Utley gets a day off.
And the backdoor slider misses 1-1. The Phillies have specialized in hitting home runs this year, particularly with men on base. In fact, this is kind of telling. The Phillies have more home runs with men on base this year than the Mets have home runs. 1-1 to to Worth. There's a good pitch by Ollie for a strike, 1-2. Phillies overall have hit 172 home runs, exactly 100 more than the Mets. Ryan Howard, who leads them in home runs with 32, waiting on deck. By the way, that includes 8 grand slams. 1-2 to Worth. Popped it up foul. That'll come out of play.
Well, they have a chance to have, what, 4 guys with 30 home runs? Worth, who's at the plate. Howard, of course. Utley, and I'm missing one guy. Ibanez be the 4th guy. They could have 4 guys with 30 home runs or more.
I remember the first time that happened, and it was such a big deal.
The Dodgers?
77 with the Dodgers. They had 4 guys with 30 home runs. It had never been done before, and now it's been done, I think, more than a dozen times.
Yeah, I think it's 12 times total. Was it the 4 infielders who had?
No, it wasn't Russell. It was Dusty Baker.
That's right.
Along with Garvey, Say, and who was the 4th? Taking low 2-2.
Garvey, Say, Dusty Baker, and it wasn't Davey Lopes, was it?
I think so.
Second base. There's Davey.
It was Reggie Smith.
That's right. How could I not know that? He's one of my favorite players.
Of course, with the Red Sox.
Oh, yes.
Inside and high. Did it hit the bat or did it hit Worth?
It hit him. No.
Apparently it hit the bat. That's the indication from the home plate umpire, Mark Wagner.
Well, that's a good break for Ollie and the Mets. Yep, just the bottom of the bat.
But another long turn at bat. This is the 3rd hitter of the game, and Ollie's already thrown 22 pitches, and still nobody out. And Worth fouls off another one.
Well, it's interesting. The Mets talked. Jerry talked before the game today that one of the keys against Pedro Martinez was that they were going to try to work long at bats to make, up Pedro's pitch count, and the shoe's on the other foot right now.
Well, they're working Pedro a different way. They're making him sit.
Okay.
Maybe get a little cold. I need to go back out to the bullpen and throw a few.
Hot, humid day. We know what Pedro does on hot, humid days.
That's when his curveball is at its best. 3-2 to Worth. And he fouls it off. Check the count. It's 2-2. Scoreboard said 3-2. I believe the correct count is 2-2. Well, the fans have kept on coming out
here at
Citi Field. 39,000 paid every day. Boy, this has been a first inning slog for Oliver Perez. Looked to second base and nobody covering.
Phillies, you like to see a team how they play during day games after night game. 22-13 in day games so far this year, the Philadelphia Phillies.
And that's with the same lineup playing just about every day. I mean, they made one change today with Utley sitting and Brutland playing, but they don't change up much. And another foul ball. This is really something. I can't recall seeing the start of a game like this with 3 batters having this long an at bat, and Schneider goes out there to try and just break the program for Perez a little bit.
I started a game in Milwaukee 100 years ago, and Pat Listash, who was the rookie of the year that year, 18 pitches, and he singled on the 18th pitch.
How'd you do the rest of the day?
I lost 1-0, so it wasn't horrible. I mean, it was horrible to loss, but I didn't get beat up.
Rollins led off with a double. Victorino walked. The 10th pitch of the at bat upcoming to Jason Worth. Fouled again. Is that Charlie's lucky pen hanging from the dugout mesh there?
It's almost like he's in a confessional there in the dugout.
I Again, the 2-2, and again fouled off. This is something.
Wow. See a little smirk by Worth there.
Well, if anybody's late arriving into their seats, you know, coming back from the concession stands, getting their food, maybe got stuck in traffic on the way to the game today, gives everybody a chance to settle in. And Worth rockets one to deep left field, right down the line, and it is a home run. A 3-run homer for Jason Worth. Just kept it fair. His 29th of the year. On the 12th pitch of the at-bat. Another Philly home run with men on base. A 3-run shot before Perez can retire back.
What an at-bat by Jason Worth. Gets a pitch down and in. Not a horrible pitch, but he's able to keep that ball fair and hits it on the porch of the Acela Club. Watch out for the Cabernet.
First run of the game brought to you by BP. Try BP gasoline with Invigorate. And it's the first home run we've seen land in that vicinity here at Citi Field. The only question was fair or foul, and Worth kept it straight. Now Ryan Howard takes ball one. Well, Oliver Perez has already done an afternoon's worth of work. And with that one swing, all that work has blown up on him. Howard hits one to left center. This is playable for Pagan. And finally, Perez has the first out of the afternoon. So one away now. Raul Ibanez will step in. Ibanez 2 for 8 in this series. Trying to get himself restarted. Had a great first half. Then a groin injury put him on the disabled list. And since coming back about 6 weeks ago, he has struggled.
Well, it was really telling. I was talking to Pedro, and he said that one of the reasons he decided to come to the Philadelphia Phillies is, one, they play great defense. They've only made 53 errors this year. That's good for an aging pitcher. And they score a lot of runs. It was telling here for him already with 3 runs in the bank.
Well, Jason Worth had himself a monumental at bat there. 12 pitches. He's been hot with the home run bat, and he crushed that ball. Good breaking ball by Ali. Has Ibanez flailing 1-2.
Well, you didn't see any swings like this from Ibanez before he hurt his groin and went on the disabled list. See a lot of those lately.
Hit a home run against Ali earlier this season. And just a hold off on that slider, and it's 2-2. Pedro Phillies waiting on deck. A rough beginning for Oliver Perez. After he got ahead of the leadoff hitter Jimmy Rollins 0-2, it has all crashed down from there. And a full count to Ibanez, and Ollie thought he was going to get that call from Mark Wegner.
Well, that was a strike. It's just that what happens is when you have Schneider sitting in the outside part and it goes back over the inside corner, Wegner missed that pitch.
So Ollie is 3-2 now on Ibanez. Bounce down to first. Short hop played by Murphy for the second out. So 2 away. And that'll bring up Pedro Phillies. Phillies 2 for 5 in this series. Has driven in a couple of runs. Did not start the first game of this series. Greg Dobbs did. Dobbs hurt himself during that game, straining his calf, and the Phillies today placed Dobbs on the disabled list and called up former Met Miguel Cairo. See, Phillies has done very little against Ali in his career. There's Miguel. Just back from Lehigh Valley. sounds so bucolic, doesn't it?
Yeah, except their nickname is not so bucolic, is it? Is it Iron Pigs or something like that?
You don't like that?
Oh.
Doesn't make you think of sunshine and daffodils?
No, it doesn't.
Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs baseball.
Oh. Hope you never have to say that, Gary.
You know, they say the same people you meet on the way up and the people you meet on the way down. 3-1 now to Phillies.
Bring me with you. We'll live in the Poconos.
Ball 4, and Phillies is on with a walk. Second one given up by Perez here in the opening inning. So he's already walked more hitters in this inning than he's in his last start against the Braves. And after
that's a heated walk right there by Dan Worthen.
With 40 pitches already having been expended by Oliver in this inning.
You know,
what do you say?
Well, listen, Figueroa's up already. I've been there, Gary, where you just, no one wants to be bad. And I've been there where you just go through stretches where you are not good. And I think what Dan Worthen did with that spirited walk is to say, hey, listen, this is the first inning. Okay, you've given up a 3-run home run. Don't get into that woe is me kind of place. Let's get it out. Get out of the inning. We're going to score you some runs, and let's get back on the mound.
Well, this should be the right guy for Ollie to get through the inning with. Eric Bruntlund getting a rare start today, hitting just 128 for the season. This is just his 15th start. And he hits one toward the middle. And Anderson Hernandez with a beautiful diving stop, but no chance to make a play. So it'll be an infield hit for Bruntlund. Wouldn't you know it?
Well, nice play here by Hernandez. Boy, gets the ground ball. Hernandez just with a beautiful dive, but there's no play, of course, on Phillies at second.
So Bruntlund making his first start in 3 weeks. Swings at the first pitch he sees against a guy who's been struggling and gets himself an infield hit. So now Carlos Ruiz, who's playing day game after a night game. It's surprising, but I guess with the left-hander on the mound, they'll play Ruiz today and play Paul Bacco tomorrow against Bobby Parnell. Bacco, a left-hand hitter, as Ruiz takes high for ball 1. Ruiz still looking for his first hit against the Mets this season. He's gone 0 for 23 against Met pitching, 0 for 5 in this series, and pitcher always feels good when he gets to put on his batting helmet before he even takes the mound. Hit in the air to deep left field. Back goes Sullivan looking up, and it's out of here. The second 3-1 homer in the opening inning off Oliver Perez. Ruiz with his 8th of the year, and the Phillies bombarding Ollie with a 6-run opening inning. Well, Ruiz finally has his first hit of the year against the Mets.
And he makes it a big one, Gary. Fastball right down the middle, up in the strike zone, and just powered 10 rows deep.
And up amongst a cadre of Philly fans, and so here comes Pedro to bat. And it's hard to judge the reaction because there's so many Philly fans here. But Pedro, who was booed when he was shown on the scoreboard the other night, getting a nice cheer as he steps in, as he takes ball 1. Well, the first start that Pedro made for the Phillies, they scored 12 runs for him in Chicago. And he got himself a victory. Now they put 6 on the board for him before he's even taken the mound. Falls behind him 3-0, and Anderson Hernandez is going to come in from shortstop, and Jerry can't watch this much longer, and he's going to make the move right here.
Wow.
With a 3-0 count against the opposing pitcher, Oliver Perez is going to be yanked from this game. That is about as embarrassing as it comes for a pitcher. So Jerry pulls the plug on Ollie after 2/3 of an inning. This call to the bullpen brought to you by Nissan. Look closer. Nissan delivers. Nelson Figueroa comes out of the bullpen, inherits a 3-0 count against Pedro Martinez. Throws strike one, and then Pedro fouls one off. In a forgettable season, an embarrassing performance for Oliver Perez. Figueroa working for the second straight day. Throws strike three called. Martinez down looking, and the inning finally comes to an end. A pair of 3-run homers by Jason Worth and Carlos Ruiz end Oliver's day early. The first time, and what emotions he must be going through.
Well, look at those. Only a couple starts so far, but 215 and 99 is his career record. That's 116 games over 500 with a career 2.92 ERA. From 1997 to 2003 with the Expos and the Red Sox, he was 118 and 36 with 34 complete games.
be facing this starting lineup for the Mets, brought to you by Toyota, a smart way to keep moving forward. Gary Sheffield not in the lineup day game after a night game. Gary also has a problem with his right wrist right now that he got lifting weights. So the 3, 4, and 5 in the Mets batting order is Murphy, Francoeur, and Sullivan. When Pedro first started out with the Dodgers and then the Expos, the first 10 games that he pitched against the Mets, he got wins. But he has not beaten the Mets since 1997. That's 12 years ago.
Here's the defense. Victorino, .996 fielding percentage. He's a Gold Glove winner from last year. Ibanez and Worth. Feliz, Rollins, Brunlin started instead of Utley. Howard at first base. And Ruiz so far this year only has thrown out 13 of 51 would-be base stealers. And look at that defense. It was brought to you by ChevyOffers.com.
Angel Pagan leads off against Pedro and takes a strike. 0-1. Angel's got a 7-game hitting streak going. 4 for 8 in this series. And he cracks one toward left center, slicing away from Victorino, and it'll go to the wall. Pagan steaming to second. He'll take a turn head for third. Victorino saying it's stuck in the wall, but the umpire's not calling it that way. Pagan being waved home. He scores. It's an inside the park home run. Victorino saw the ball stop at the base of the wall, stopped, felt that it should have been called a ground rule double. The second base umpire, Rob Drake, looked at him and said, no, it's not. Pagan kept on going, and he has an inside the park home run.
Well, you see this ball drifting away from Victorino, and it gets underneath the padding. Once it gets underneath the padding, of course, Victorino raises his arms, but that's a ball right there with the ground rule here that you can reach down and grab that and throw that back into play. So instead of a double, it's turned into a inside the park home run for Pagan.
That's one we just can't assume.
Yeah, you just grab it.
Ibanez looked very perturbed at Victorino for stopping. He went over, picked the ball up, and flung it back in, but far too late. 4th home run of the year for Pagan inside the park.
And give Pagan a lot of credit, because he did not assume running out of the box. He thinks right here he's going to shut it down at 2, but he sees that Victorino does not go for the baseball, gets to third base, and gets the call from Razor Shines to continue on.
So it's 7-1, and Luis Castillo, 6-1. Luis Castillo follows with a base hit. And so Pedro Martinez, handed a 6-0 lead, has given up back-to-back base hits to start the bottom of the first. Castillo's now just raging hot. He came in with 5 straight multiple hit games, and he's got a base hit to start his day today.
If you would have said before the season started that Louis would be batting in mid-August, late August, 320 about, you'd say, boy, the Mets are on their way.
Well, right now, Louis is 5th in the National League in batting. Here's Murphy, who's been hot, 8-game hitting streak going. And he fouls off the changeup, 0-1. Pedro's keys to the game brought to you by Hyundai.
Well, I think one of the things we've seen already, he's got to keep his emotions in check. It's probably very inspiring for him to pitch here against his old team. To get the lead, he has to use all 3 of his pitches, even though he has a 6-run lead, and pitch inside. That's something that we did not see from Pedro in his last few starts for the Mets.
Murphy 3 for 8 in this series with a pair of doubles. Fisted foul. Well, Angel Pagan picking up his first career inside the park home run. His second career leadoff home run. They've both come this season.
It's another case of a ball player not knowing the rules. You know, I mean, sometimes the players in the field don't always know what's going on.
1-2 to Murphy. Last inside the park home run by a Met was Damian Easley, who hit one in Milwaukee a couple of years ago. But that's a big mistake by Victorino. You don't stop. Not in a play like that. And you're right, particularly in a new ballpark where you may not be 100% certain about the ground rule.
A lot of times what you can do is that the first guy who gets to the ball, plays the ball, Ibanez can be the guy to raise his arms up and try to get the umpires to make the call. But just a man who doesn't make a lot of mistakes made one there.
1-2 to Murphy as Pedro searches for an out, and he throws the breaking ball. Murphy hits it well the other way down toward the left field corner, but foul. Not much room between the line and the stands down there, and somebody got a souvenir. Murphy was running it out. He'll come on back.
That's the only problem when you have those balls in the stands, that you usually end up with a guy in front of you who can't catch. And all he does really is just hide the ball away from you.
Long turn at bat for Murphy. And he bounces one slowly to Rollins. Gets the out at second, and that's all. So there's the first out of the inning as Castillo's erased. One out and one on for Jeff Francoeur. Francoeur 4 for 8 in this series with a double and a home run. Scored the Mets' only run last night. Francoeur, a guy who has found Pedro quite puzzling. He's just 4 for 25 against Pedro. Drives this one toward the gap in right center field. Murphy heading for third as the ball rolls all the way to the bullpen fence. Murphy being waved around. He'll score easily. Francoeur heads to third, and he's in with an RBI triple. And now it's 6-2 Philadelphia. Francoeur's 4th triple of the year.
Well, interesting pitch by Pedro. First pitch fastball right down the middle of the plate to Francoeur, who is famous for taking a swipe at that first pitch. And we've seen how many balls go right to that spot there that just almost are an automatic triple. Good read by Murph. Cuts the bases nicely for the second run for the Mets. And Francoeur we've seen since day one. He sprints from the box. He's got that long stride. Turns it on between second and third and gets himself a triple. That was more lay down than a slide there by Francoeur.
So a rough beginning for Pedro Martinez after being handed a 6-run lead. Now Corey Sullivan will try and keep it going. Sullivan hitting 5th in the order. Well, remember the last time Pedro made a homecoming start? When the Mets went to Boston in 2006 and Pedro got roughed up by the Red Sox. This one's starting out the same way. Difference is he has a big lead to work with.
I think he might have given up 8 runs in that start.
So you wonder whether the emotions are playing with him a little bit. I mean, Pedro, when he talked earlier this week, made no secret of the fact that he would have preferred to have returned this year as a Met and was waiting for the Mets to make a contract offer. Didn't like the way his tenure with the Mets ended in injury over the last 2 years. Said that he turned down some offers during spring training, waiting for the Mets to come calling, saying that he thought his performance in the World Baseball Classic proved that he was healthy, but the Mets weren't interested. Foul back. And all those things have to play into his emotions right now.
Oh, I totally agree. And you can see here his career with the Mets, 32 and 23. Mets record, though, 1 game under 500 during his tenure. He's a very emotional pitcher anyways. He pitches on emotion. That's why he's been so great.
Head on Sullivan, 1-2, and he strikes him out with a good changeup. And that's the second out of the inning.
What's a nice combination here for Pedro. He went fastball in, and then this changeup, even though it stayed in, was down in the strike zone. That would have been a big run for the Mets to pick up right there.
So Francoeur pinned at third with 2 out, and it's left to Fernando Tatis, who has swung the bat much better over the last week since filling in for David Wright at third base. 2 for 6 in this series. Six to 2 Philadelphia, and we're only in the first inning of the game. And the cutter outside, 1-1. Ryan Schneider waiting on deck. Tatis, a half swing foul, 1-2. 89 from Pedro.
He threw one early in the bat to Sullivan inside that was 90 miles an hour. So he's in a range that we have not seen in a while.
Well, he was clocked as high as 93 in his first start in Chicago, but people who were watching him felt as though the gun was a little fast that day. And you see he's throwing almost all strikes early in this game. Maybe a couple too many to Pagan and to Francoeur, but that a perfect one on the outside corner to get Tatis. So Pedro finishes the first inning with back-to-back strikeouts, but the Mets put a couple of runs on the board. Angel Pagan gets an extra base hit that turns into an inside the park home run on the mistake by Victorino, and that helps the Mets get two. They trail 6-2. Why he did not play this ball.
Well, it's interesting. It's very visible, but we heard from Tom McCarthy, who does the games for the Philadelphia Phillies, if that ball happens in Philadelphia, it gets launched at all, you just raise your arms, it's a ground rule double. So maybe that's one of the reasons he made the mistake. Trying to plead his case, but it doesn't look like Charlie really interested.
First time that has happened here at Citi Field, that a ball has stuck under the padding like that. So
is that area, Gary, where there's a door? Because I know there's a place where it opens up out there around the 384 where they keep some of the equipment that they use on the field, of course.
Back where our TV trucks are, back behind that wall.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's why that billboard is raised just a little bit, that padding. So I guess you can blame it on us.
Why not?
It popped up for Tatis, so that's the first out of the inning. So Rollins, who led off the first inning with a double, is retired for the first out, and now here's Victorino, who walked and scored in the first against Oliver Perez, who went just 2/3 of an inning, charged with 4 hits, 6 runs, all of them earned, 2 walks, no strikeouts, shortest outing for Ollie since May of last year, when he lasted just 1/3 of an inning in San Francisco. And I think his outing today raises a larger question, because this is a team for whom a lot of things have gone wrong this year. And I think when the year is over, everybody from ownership to management on down is going to take a look at everything concerning this franchise and try and figure out what went wrong, how they can make things better in the future, and more importantly, which players who are here now are part of the answer going forward and which players aren't. But I think one of the questions in that regard that's already answered is Oliver Perez. He's going to be here. He's got 2 more years on his contract, making a lot of money. And somehow the Mets have got to figure out how to get something over the next 2 years out of Oliver Perez, regardless of what happens between now and the end of the season. Anderson Hernandez, nice play going to his left, but he double clutches, and that cost him any chance of getting the speedy Victorino. Have to reach in that glove a second time.
Well, we've seen Hernandez with 2 nice plays up the middle. So he shows lots of range, and like you said, Gary, once he double clutch, no chance to get the speedy Victorino from that left side. Well, to answer your question about Oliver, I think that you've come to a certain point where almost it's very difficult to try to rectify this season. We know that he went on the disabled list with a bad knee. There's been talk about his knee being a little bulky after the last 2 or 3 games. It might be talk of, you take him out, you try to spend the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Worth pops one up into shallow right, and Frank Court coming in hard. That's the second out.
Trying to retool his windup. Now, you people at home are going to say, well, that's what they've been doing. I mean, they've got the pause, they've got the lean into the home plate, all those different things that they've been trying to do to make it a real rote kind of way for Oliver to pitch. But I think what has happened, and this is just my personal opinion, it's not a fact, it's just that Oliver is one of those pitchers that has gotten into a point where he's worried about the lean in, he's worried about the pause, and what is taken away is that at some point all that stuff's good to work on in between games, but once you get into the game you have to compete, and that's the thing that I'm not seeing from Oliver, is that I think he's worried a lot about his mechanics, which is rightfully so, but once you get into a game, those things kind of go out the window. What you have to do is what you have, you compete, and you say, I'm better than you every time you face another guy. And I don't see that from him. I see, tentativeness on how to throw pitches, where to go, instead of thinking like a pitcher. I'm going to throw this first ball in. If I miss in, I'm going to go away. I've been throwing too many things hard, so I got to go with a changeup now. All of those things instead of worrying about so much of the mechanics.
2-0 to Howard. Victorino runs, and Howard lines one at Castillo in just the right spot to grab it and end the inning. There, the triangle defense paid off. Castillo 20 feet into the outfield. If he hadn't been, that's a hit. Instead, it's a leaping grab for Castillo to get Figueroa through the second. That is displayed here at Citi Field, including Pedro's number 45 in Met blue and orange, now wearing Philly red and gray as he faces the Mets in the bottom of the second. It has been a rough go for Brian Snyder. 4 for his last 46. His average has dropped to 182 for the year, and his playing time continues to diminish as Omir Santos has continued to play well. Taken high, and it's 2-0. There was a note in Adam Rubin's blog in the Daily News today that the Mets are planning to call up Josh Tolley, one of their catching prospects, when the rosters expand in September. Schneider lifts one to right, and that chases Worth back. Going back, and it's over his head, but he's able to get there and grab it before he hits the fence. That ball just kept on carrying on Worth, but somehow he recovered to grab it.
Well, I will tell you, this young man playing right field that has 29 home runs and is supposed to be one of your extra players, kind of, has turned himself into quite a ball player. I remember Carlos Beltran talking about him earlier this season, said that Worth is one of the finest right fielders that he's ever seen.
So a long out for Schneider. Ball that would have been a home run in any other ballpark. Here's Anderson Hernandez.
Well, that's what happens when you're struggling, right?
He's just got to steer that ball a little further toward the corner, where it's a little friendlier.
Not that easy, by the way.
Yeah, I wasn't implying that it was. Anderson Hernandez 0 for his last 14, and takes the curveball from Pedro outside. 2-1. Nelson Figueroa on in long relief today, waiting on deck. Another curveball, and Howard scoops it up on the short hop. Not the ideal way you want to play that ball, but it worked for him. 2 out.
Yeah, that's a play that Sam Palazzo, who has helped Brian so much at first base, will have a little discussion with him, because kind of played it side saddle, and if it takes a bad hop, you can look kind of silly. But that's not taken away from Ryan Howard. Has improved his defense exponentially this year with all his hard work.
Here's Nelson Figueroa. Figueroa working for the second straight day. Worked an inning last night. Has already gone an inning and a third today, and we'll see how far the Mets will be able to push him. Mets added an extra pitcher yesterday when they called up Pat Mish, who wound up taking the loss, so the Mets are carrying 13 pitchers right now. Here's Sammy, former Met third base coach. Sam Palazzo. Popped up along the line. Rollins with a good angle. And that retires the side. So Pedro Martinez, recovering after a difficult beginning, has retired 5 in a row. And it's 6-2 Phillies.
You got to watch out, though. You got to go to the right place. You get low bridged.
New York Mets baseball is brought to you by ChevyOffers.com. Find your nearest dealer on ChevyOffers.com. Hey, if Mr. Met can get his head through the corridors, which, by the way, he can do very easily here at Citi Field, then no problem riding on Dad's shoulders. That's a cutie, outfitted in Mets colors already. Raul Ibanez leads off in the third inning against Nelson Figueroa. 6-2 Phillies. Ibanez grounded out to first base his first time up. It'll be Ibanez, then Pedro Feliz, and Eric Bruntlett for the Phillies in the third. Two and 0 now to Ibanez.
Interesting, both Figueroa and Pedro Martinez in long sleeves on this muggy afternoon.
Now, Justin Miller, you understand why he has to wear long sleeves.
That's right.
There's a rule about that.
Is there a rule?
Yes, it's called the Justin Miller rule.
Because of the tattoos?
Right. Too distracting to the hitter. I don't think Pedro has that issue, nor Nelson.
They're going to have that rule in the NBA.
Well, you don't have to see 90-mile-an-hour white spheres coming in the NBA.
Well, so the Yankees pitcher has a lot of tattoos. Burnett, too, right?
Ball 4. And Ibanez draws the leadoff walk. First given up by Figueroa. Does he have that many on his arms, though?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
AJ, when he first came up through the Mets farm system, had some other appurtenances that attracted people's attention. Here's Feliz, who walked and scored in the first inning. And he cracks one into center field for a base hit. Ibanez pulls it at second, and the Phils have the first two men on in the third. That's 6 hits for Philadelphia. And now Eric Bruntlett, making his first start in 3 weeks. Saw one pitch his first at bat and hit a ground ball behind the bag at second for an infield hit. And when you're hitting 128, which is what Bruntlett was hitting coming in, every hit feels like a 3-run homer.
That's right. You know, one of the kind of unsung valuable players for them in last season, though, because of Rollins with that bad ankle, he played a lot of shortstop.
And he lines this one into right field, and how about that? Bruntlett is 2 for 2. Stopping at third, Ibanez, and the bases are loaded. So Bruntlett getting a chance to play today with Chase Utley getting a day off. He's seen 2 pitches today, and he has 2 hits.
Well, good hitting here. First ball fastball away, just drives it to right field. It's a picture perfect swing if you're trying to go the other way. Hits that ball even with the plate, drives it to right field.
Well, Carlos Ruiz already has a 3-run homer today. Now he bats with the bases loaded and nobody out in the third. Ruiz had been 0 for 23 against the Mets before he hit the 3-run homer that started to begin the end for Oliver Perez. And that curveball slipped out of the hand of Figueroa, 1-0. The Phillies have the most grand slams in the majors. They've already hit 8 of them this year.
Well, defensively, you can see for the Mets, pretty straight up, both in the infield and outfield. Nelson would love to have a comebacker right here.
Slider off the plate, 2-0. And so the hole gets a little deeper. And Ruiz pops it up. Infield fly rule will be called. Batter is out. Castillo has it 1 away. So 1 big out for Figueroa, and now Pedro will step in. After Perez gave up the 3-run homer to Ruiz, he was left in to face Pedro and fell behind 3-0, and it was at that point that Jerry Manuel maybe mercifully pulled Perez out of the game. Figueroa came in and struck out Martinez after inheriting that 3-0 count. Now Pedro up with the bases loaded and 1 out, and he swings and misses, 0-1. Pedro's a lifetime .099 hitter. Has 17 career RBIs and 425 at bats. They won't be thinking about that when they vote for the Hall of Fame.
No.
Now, Pedro had a couple of the best years that any pitcher has ever had when he was pitching for the Red Sox. 1999, when he won the pitching Triple Crown and went 23-4. Hit toward the hole, and now he's got another RBI. That's 18 for his career. Ibanez in to score, and it's 7-2 Philadelphia. First hit of the season for Pedro Martinez.
Well, Pedro finds a hole. Fastball is supposed to be in. Gets more of the plate, although it looks like it hits the glove where Snyder wanted that pitch. They wanted to jam Pedro. And inside out, hit the right field.
Now Jimmy Rollins with the bases full and still only 1 out. Rollins doubled and scored back in the first, popped up in the second. And the curveball in for a strike. One to Rollins. Now Pat Mish, who was called back up yesterday and was the losing pitcher in yesterday's game, back up again. The Mets have been going with more than an ordinary number of long men in their bullpen. As Rollins hits one toward left center field, Sullivan gets over there and makes the grab. Phillies tags at third and scores easily to make it 8-2 Philadelphia. Rollins with his 58th run batted into the season. The frightening thing about the number of long men that the Mets have been carrying, I mean, whether it's been Redding out there or Descends or Figueroa or Mish, is that they're all getting work.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a bad sign for your pitching staff. And it's really one of the untold stories about the Mets this year. You know, there's been so much focus on the injuries, and rightly so, because the Mets have lost more important players to more long-term injuries than any team in memory. But the untold story about this team has been the starting pitching.
Yes.
Once you get past Johan Santana, it has been an utter disappointment. Victorino has walked and had an infield hit, and he takes ball 2.
Well, about the same time that Jerry really went to the whip with his starting pitchers and really put the onus on them after the Beltran injury and said, listen, we can stay in this if we pitch from the starting position. Our starters have to pitch well. Well, they've definitely have not pitched well. And in the same time period, the Philadelphia Phillies starters have gone, I think, 22 or 23-10. So, you know, that was the big difference that has gotten the Mets out of this race.
I mean, Mike Pelfrey has had a couple of nice starts in a row now, and you'd love to see him get on a roll to finish the year, but he's been very inconsistent. After winning 13 games last year, Victorino walks, and that fills the bases. Then you have Oliver Perez, who's just been an enigma, and John Maine, who, you know, tweaked something in the back of his shoulder and has been in the witness protection program since then. Jerry heads out to the mound. You got Jason Worth, a right-hand hitter, coming up. With Mish in the bullpen, you'd figure Figueroa gets one more batter here.
Usually he sends Danny Worthen out, though, if he's not going to make a move. Oh, I know what he's doing. Jerry went out there to talk to Nelson Figueroa and Brian Schneider. The reason Brian Schneider's talking, he asked him, what is wrong with the strike zone? Are we getting any strikes? Is the strike zone really little? And now he's going to talk to the home plate umpire about it. That's why Jerry came out. Remember, he had a problem with Wagner yesterday at second base.
That was in the opening game of the series when Wagner missed the call on the phantom tag on Frank Core, and he ran Jerry from the game. Jerry will stick around for a while this time, although at times he must feel as though he'd like to get run.
Yeah.
So Figueroa stays in to face Jason Worth, who had a 3-run homer back in the first inning against Oliver Perez, and he takes a mighty Ruthian cut. Well, that's got to give a message to a pitching staff right there.
It'd be more apt to see him go down again.
Two-one from Figueroa, and Worth pops it up. Tatis racing down, almost ran over Sammy Palazzo, but he gets there to end the inning. Phillies add 2 runs and lead it 8-2.
Lead, and certainly Pedro Martinez has a chance to get a win in his return to New York. And talking about his new teammates in the Phillies, he said, you know, they really surprised me. As intense as they are on the field, it's amazing how calm they are off it. And he said, it's simple. They know they're going to win. You know, guys watching this team in the last couple of years, you kind of felt that way watching them and being around their clubhouse. But Pedro, new to the clubhouse, that's how he put it. And you got to say, that's pretty much the right thing, especially talking to some of the guys in the clubhouse. They have that calmness to them off the field, but Pedro noticed it right away. Back upstairs to you.
Well, it's probably true to a certain extent with any really good team, isn't it? That you have that sense of security that you know you're good. Angel Pagan, it's a rocket to deep right center field. Back goes Worth, looking up, and it's out of here. Angel Pagan with his second home run of the game. An inside the park home run of the first, and he takes Pedro Martinez into the bullpen for his 5th of the year, his 2nd of the day, and now it's 8-3.
Boy, what a day Pagan is having so far. This ball is supposed to be inside. We talked about it before. To be effective, Pedro's going to have to get that ball in on the left-handers, but leaves it out over the middle of the plate and up.
A strike to Castillo. Well, Pagan has had himself quite an afternoon already. The inside the park home run facilitated by Victorino. This one he did all on his own. Castillo had a base hit to right his first time up. By the way, on that inside the park home run by Pagan, here's a great note. It was the 25th inside the park home run in Mets history, the second that has ever come leading off the first inning. The other inside the park home run by a Met that came leading off the first inning came 2 stadiums ago.
Oh, jeez.
It was in May of 1963. Charlie Neal, who was an infielder on those early day Mets, hit an inside the park home run at the Polo Grounds, also against the Phillies, against Art Mahaffey. And Castillo lines one to right, and that falls for a hit. And for the 6th consecutive game, Castillo has 2 or more hits.
Pedro trying to go outside with Castillo with a little breaking ball that stays up in the strike zone. That big leg kick by Castillo, very balanced, and just serves that ball to right field.
First time in Luis Castillo's career he has had 6 consecutive multiple hit games, and you're talking about a guy who once had a 35-game hitting streak.
Man.
So the 3rd inning begins the way the 1st inning began for Pedro. Home run by Pagan, single by Castillo.
Well, really, it's been location for Pedro because he is throwing all of his pitches for strikes. I know we dropped the pitch count in before. He just thrown a lot of strikes, not a lot of balls, but the ball is up in the strike zone, waist or higher most of the time.
1-1 to Murphy. Jeff Francoeur on deck. By the way, for Pagan, it's his 2nd career multiple home run game. He did it back in '06 while with the Cubs. And Murphy gets tied in a knot. Did he swing? No. Third base umpire Tim Timmons gives him a pass. 2-1.
Little slider down and into Murph. Well, he was able to keep his hands back. His body and everything went, just his hands did not.
Leave those hands behind. Curveball from Pedro misses, and now it's 3-1.
It's an interesting choice of pitches, isn't it? With an 8-3 score. 2-1 curveball from Pedro Martinez.
You wonder in Pedro's mind, as much as pitching to win, is he also still auditioning for the Phillies?
Oh, absolutely.
With fastball 3-2.
You know, they have such a strong rotation right now, so really, if they continue to play the way they're playing and they do win the National League East, it's all everyone for themselves is who's going to start those games. And with Hamels not pitching as well as he did last season, you know, obviously you still think he's going to be one of the 3 starters or 4 starters they would use if they make the playoffs. But right now, Cliff Lee would probably be their #1 pitcher. Blanton has pitched awfully well, and Jay Happ we saw yesterday with a nice 7-inning effort.
As we'll get a look at Cliff Lee tomorrow. He makes the start. He's 4-0 so far for the Phillies. And Murphy fouling off a couple to stay alive. By the way, one more note on Pagan. It's only the 2nd multiple home run game by a Met this season. Carlos Beltran had 2 home runs against the Braves back on May 4th.
And it was off Javier Vasquez. I think there were 2 2-run home runs.
8th pitch of the at-bat upcoming. Castillo runs and Murphy fouls it back. He had a good rip at that. High fastball from Pedro at 91. Well, there's the Phillies rotation right now, and that leaves out Jamie Moyer, who leads them in wins this season.
With 11.
Moyer's in the bullpen right now.
Well, I think what Pedro is going through is exactly what another older starter is going through, who's starting for the Cardinals today, John Smoltz, is that they have to pitch. These are guys at elite level, 95, 96 miles an hour.
Runner goes. Murphy hits it to deep right. Worth got a bad jump on it, and it's over his head and into the Mo zone. Castillo to third. He'll be held up there. A double for Murphy. Well, you don't see Worth misplay them often, but he did that time. And it costs as Murphy has a long double to right, and the Mets have 3 straight hard hits to start the 3rd.
And you're right, he just froze when that ball was hit off the bat of Murphy. Change up on 3-2 pitch. Castillo does everything right, but you have to be conservative with the 5-run deficit. Murph, of course, always running hard, gets himself a double. Just to finish that point up, I think what happens with a guy like Schmaltz is Rich Doobie, the pitch coach, goes to the bullpen phone. They are still trying to pitch the same way they did when they had that extra kind of gear, and that gear has been taken away from them.
Here's Francoeur with 2 in scoring position, and he fouls it back. Francoeur hit a long triple to right center field in the 1st inning. A base hit here, and the Mets are right back in this game. Trailing 8-3. It's only the 3rd inning, and they have hit Pedro Martinez hard. At least the top part of the order has. 0-2 to Francoeur. But this is the problem the Mets have right now. Even when they are hitting, the depth in their batting order is so shallow once you get past Francoeur. Chad Durbin is up in the Philly bullpen. Well, it's got to be difficult for any starting pitcher, but particularly one of the pedigree of Pedro Martinez, to be handed a 6-0 lead and now have the specter of not being able to go far enough to get a win. Jamie Moyer is also up in that Philly bullpen. I mean, if you're Charlie Manuel, you can't let games get away, even with a 6.5 game lead.
Well, that's all about managing with your head, not your heart.
Now Pedro's ahead on Francoeur, 0-2. Another good rip. Tell you what, we have seen some big swings in this game. None bigger than the one Worth took in the last inning.
Well, none of the pitchers, all 3 that have been in the game so far, have done anything inside. So we don't have anyone kind of backed off the plate, leery of anything coming inside. So they are feeding at those ones on the outside part of the plate. As you see the standings now in an NL East.
Atlanta and Florida playing in Georgia, with the Braves up 3-2 in the 3rd. And Pedro strikes out Francoeur for the 1st out of the inning. 3rd strikeout for Martinez.
Well, he's wanted to go after Francoeur with that fastball up in the strike zone and just beats him to the spot.
Hardest pitch he's thrown this afternoon. So 1 out of the inning. And now Corey Sullivan, who struck out on a changeup his 1st time up. Gary Sheffield getting the day off today. Jerry Manuel also mentioned that Sheffield's right wrist was bothering him.
He said he was messing with some weights, doing in the weight room.
Changeup misses Sullivan 1-0.
I should try to explain what I was saying before. See, mostly more strikes than balls. Very good strike to ball ratio, but at this point in his career, he might want that to be a little different. You know, those closer, and that probably doesn't make a lot of sense at home.
Well, you know, it's the way Tom Glavine always pitched. A guy who would stay on the edge and tease you and force you to swing at balls that were out of the strike zone. But when you've been where Pedro's been, a guy who could throw 95 miles an hour, it's different, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he, for the first 12 to 15 years of his career, every time he got behind, he went after someone.
Check swing grinder, that'll get a run home. Rollins throws out Sullivan as Castillo scores to cut the Philly lead to 8-4. RBI for Sullivan, his 8th of the year, as Murphy takes 3rd.
And I guess what I'm talking about for both Schmaltz, who's pitching today, and Pedro, is that you're talking about 2 guys with a lot of machismo, and what you have to do is you kind of have to lose that when you get a little older and not throwing as hard.
Now Tatis with a runner at 3rd and 2 out. Fernando took a call, 3rd strike, his 1st time up. And the changeup up and in, 2-0. Brian Schneider waiting on deck. Tatis takes the fastball outside, 3-0.
.26 pitches this inning, 17 strikes. Looks like he's not pitching around Tatis, but he's being very careful with Tatis with Brian mired in that slump.
And yet Schneider crushed the ball his first time up. We'll see what happens here after Tatis draws the first walk for Pedro. Inside Edition, America's longest running and top-rated news magazine, is coming to Picks 5 nights a week. Don't miss their award-winning reporting as Deborah Norville hosts Inside Edition, followed by the only local news at 6:30, the new Picks News at 6:30. It's an hour of news at a time when you can actually watch it. The new Picks at 6 premieres September 14th on Picks. Here's Schneider, hit one to the fence in right field that Worth was able to track down. 0 for his last 13 and 4 for his last 47. With runners at the corners and 2 out, and the Mets down 8-4. This will be a heck of a time for him to break out. But he pops one up. Playable for Phillies or Ruiz, and it's Phillies. Side retired. Mets get 2 and trail 8-4. Some of the murals here at Citi Field depicting the '86 Mets. I like how they put Keith right in the middle. Mets upcoming schedule brought to you by the 2009 Honda clearance sale. By the way, so does he. One more game with the Phillies tomorrow. Cliff Lee for the Mets. Bobby Parnell from Salisbury, North Carolina will pitch for the Mets against Cliff Lee. Then the road trip begins in Florida Tuesday night. 3 with the Marlins, 3 with the Cubs, and 3 with the Rockies. And by the time the Mets get home, it'll be Labor Day weekend. Pat Mish, who was the losing pitcher yesterday after being recalled from Buffalo, is on to pitch for New York.
Yeah, he had the big walk and then the home run, of course. He'll try to turn it around today. Just recalled 2 days ago.
Ryan Howard is 0 for 2. Flied out to center field in the first, and then in the second, the Mets justified the way they defend him.
Yeah.
He hit it to the short fielder. That's Castillo is out there in shallow right. Mish confuses him, and it's 0-2.
What do you call that? The triangle defense.
Never saw that. Never saw the second baseman playing that deep until they started playing that way against Bonds. Out to left center, and Pagan is watching it. 1 out. I mean, the original shift was the one that the Indians and Lou Boudreau concocted against Ted Williams back in the 40s. But The pictures that I've seen of that all have the second baseman playing, at the back of the infield dirt, or maybe a step onto the outfield grass. And there have been various variations of that used over the years for other left-handed sluggers. But I don't think I ever saw a second baseman playing that far out into the outfield until the Barry Bonds shift. And now it's been used with greater frequency against other guys.
Well, the reason you can use it against Howard and use it against Barry Bonds was late in his career, because you couldn't do that early in his career when he was leading off for the Pittsburgh Pirates, because he could fly. But you can do it for Howard because he has that big Ruthian swing, and it takes him a while to get out of the batter's box.
0-2 to Ibanez, who walked and scored his last time up, 0 for 1 on the day. By the way, speaking of left-handed sluggers against whom they played the shift, did you see Jason Giambi today was signed by the Colorado Rockies?
Interesting signing. You would think an American League team would be more attractive for Jason, who is at this point defensively challenged.
Well, I guess they're just looking for a left-handed bat off the bench. I mean, he's not going to supplant Todd Helton. But that's the kind of move that a contending team makes, that little piece that they think can put them over the top. The Rockies starting the day with a 2-game lead on the Giants in that National League wildcard race. They had a big win yesterday over San Francisco. Swing and a miss, and Mish strikes out Ibanez, 2 out.
Well, better control today by Pat Mish. Little slider on the outside part gets Ibanez. Talk about Barry Bonds. I remember when he first came up, Gary, and was leading off for Pittsburgh, and I pitched against his father. Hard to believe, but I did in AAA in his last year with the Columbus Clippers.
Ring your bell.
There you go. But I remember he came up, he was leading off, and he was a skinny guy. And, of course, he came up with so much aplomb and acclaim. I was like, you know what, he's not that good. So I started him out with the fastball away. Home run to left center. I go, you know what, maybe he is pretty good. I have to be a little more careful with this guy.
By the way, I know there are probably people who are wondering, what the heck is he talking about? Ring your bell.
Yeah.
The Columbus Clippers, who I guess now are an Indians farm team, but for years with the Yankees AAA team, they have a song. And the chorus is Columbus Clippers, ring your bell. And they play it like 20 times a game. Feliz posts one to right. Frank Curry is there. So if you've ever been to a game in Columbus, you've heard the song. And it stays in your head forever, unfortunately. Price at the pump. Go to Hyundai.com to find out how.
Gary, what's this here?
That would be the unit.
What's that there? Right behind it?
What are we looking at?
Right here.
Oh, that is the It was one of the pavilions from the World's Fair. They made a restaurant out of it.
Oh, okay.
Terrace on the Park, I believe it's called. I don't know why it's still standing after all these years. Of all the great exhibits they had at the World's Fair, they kept a couple.
You know, at Six Flags, they have that thing called drop zone. Have you ever done that with your kids? It's about that high, and it just drops you.
Swinging bunt by Anderson Hernandez, and Brentwood makes a nice play to throw him out. A little too hard by Anderson. Got to pass the pitcher, but Brentwood's still out of play.
Nice job with the bare hand, but he fired a bullet over here that almost got by Ryan Howard. You're right. You see that little bit of extra left hand that Hernandez put into that drag bunt? Put a little too much on it as Brunman was able to make the play.
Would you call that a slug bunt?
It was he was trying to bring it with him, but that left hand gave it a little too much power.
So it wasn't like the Rafael Furcal thing where he shows bunt and then tries to kind of whack it past you.
No, yeah, that was definitely a bunt where he brought it with him.
Bad Mish getting a rare turn at bat.
Interesting to see Mish, right? Because he's a left-handed thrower and a right-handed hitter. Puts that little elbow pad to protect that left arm. Smart.
Just like Randy Johnson.
That's right.
Strike three called. 3 pitches and Mish is out of there. 4 strikeouts for Pedro. Watching the Picks game of the week could land you some amazing seats at Citi Field during every Mets game here on Picks. We're giving you a chance to score free tickets to an upcoming game brought to you by the new McCafe coffees made with fresh ground espresso now at McDonald's. Tune into the Picks game of the week all season long for your chance to win free Mets tickets. Big hand for Angel Pagan, who already has 2 home runs today. An inside the park homer in the first, and then a crushing shot into the right center field bullpen in the third. His second career multiple home run game. One and one for Pedro. So Pagan, who had not hit a home run left-handed all season before today, has 2 in his first 2 at bats. Two-one. Bounce foul. The last Met to hit 3 home runs in a game was Jose Reyes, who did it in Philadelphia in 2006. There have been 7 Mets hit 3 home runs in a game. Nobody's ever hit 4. Pagan down on strikes. Pedro Martinez with back-to-back strikeouts to finish the 4th inning. That's 5 on the day for Pedro, who's got himself an 8-4 lead after 4. At the Ziegfeld Theater in Midtown Manhattan. Join Mr. Met and fellow Met fans for SNY's live broadcast when the Mets face the Marlins at 7:10 p.m. Get your tickets at Mets.com/movies today. Pat Mish worked a 1-2-3 fourth inning, stays on for the fifth. Eric Bruntlett leads off. Bruntlett has seen 2 pitches today and he has 2 hits. And he finally takes one for ball 1. Bruntlett getting his first start in 3 weeks, with Chase Utley getting the day off. Came into the game hitting 128, and he's 2 for 2. And making 3 for 3. You know, you just can't figure this game sometimes.
That's right.
Mets feel themselves fortunate that Utley's not playing. Bruntlett hitting 128. He's seen 4 pitches today. He's got 3 hits.
That's why when people say after one game, well, that person's over, or that person can't do this or that. Think of the Yankee-Boston series. First game was what, 21-11? Yankees win. Second game, 14-1 Boston. I mean, it just changes from day to day.
Here's Carlos Ruiz, who belted a 3-run homer back in the first inning. 1 for 2 on the day. One and 1 to Ruiz. By the way, I mentioned a moment ago that the Mets have had 7 games where players hit 3 home runs. Line to third, caught by Tatis, and no play on Bruntlett, who scrambles back, 1 away. Amazingly enough, as you look at that last play,
a little bit off the end of the bat, so a nice change up there from Pat Mish. No play for Fernando.
No Met ever hit 3 home runs in a game at the Polo Grounds, and no Met ever hit 3 home runs in a game at Shea.
Wow. I saw one of them in Wrigley Field. Number 18 had a nice day that day.
In fact, the Mets had, in 1985, had 2 players in the same season hit 3 home runs in a game. Strawberry did it in Chicago, and Gary Carter did it later that year in San Diego. The others, Jim Hickman in St. Louis in 65. Dave Kingman in L.A. in 76, Claudel Washington in L.A. in 80, Edgardo Alfonso in Houston in 99, and Reyes in Philadelphia in 06. Fouled at the plate by Pedro. 1-1. I think the most impressive of those games was Alfonso's. At the Astrodome, 6 for 6, 3 homers, 6 runs scored, 6 RBI.
Sweet.
Successful sacrifice for Pedro, 1-4, moving Bruntlett to second base.
Nice form here by Pedro. See, he's pinching that bat right at the trademark. Gets it off the end of the bat. That will deaden the ball. And Mish makes a nice choice here. He had a chance maybe at second base, but with 1 out, you want to go to first, get the easy out, and try to get out of the inning. See everyone moving. Murphy charging hard. Tatis charging. Paul right back at Mish. You can see he has a play at second base, but it would have been an aggressive play. Better to get the out.
So Pedro gets down his first sacrifice after picking up his first hit his previous time up. And now Jimmy Rollins, who's delivered a double and sacrifice fly today, 1 for 2. And he takes a fastball for ball 1. Oliver Perez lasted just 2/3 of an inning today, 47 pitches. Gave up a pair of 3-run homers to Jason Worth and Carlos Ruiz, and after he fell behind Pedro Martinez 3-0, he was lifted. Nelson Figueroa worked 2 1/3 in long relief, gave up 2 runs and 4 hits, and now Mish working his second inning. Another day when Jerry Manuel has gotten less than he hoped for from his starting pitcher. Grounded to second. Grass cutter right to Castillo to retire the side. Nice work by Mish, who's given the Mets 2 scoreless. We're halfway through now at Citi Field. Mets have Castillo, who's red hot to lead off, down 8-4. the Phillies with an 8-4 lead. Let's check in with Kevin Burkhardt. Kevin?
Well, Garrett, earlier in the game you were talking about the evaluation process and what we're going to be looking for from this Mets team from here until the final day of this season. And one of those things is going to be Bobby Parnell and how he does transforming back into a starter. And quite honestly, if he has what it takes to be a starter and do that next year, or if he's going to be, in fact, in this Mets pen next year. And I thought what might be a neat idea is to follow Parnell and follow his thought process. So what we're going to do to the end of the season is I'm going to talk to him the day before he starts and the day after he starts and just kind of get a feel for not only what he's been doing or what he did in a game, but what he thought about it or what he is thinking and how he's trying to adjust to this role. And I started that today, talking to him about this week, coming off that rough start against the Giants and now getting ready to face the Phillies tomorrow. And he said, well, one thing I learned about Bobby is that, first of all, he throws 2 bullpens, which isn't so common anymore. He throws the regular bullpen 2 days after his start, and then he throws what he calls a touch and feel bullpen. 20 pitches about. He throws it, he said, about 85%. He said, for me, I need it for my development. And I've never had a problem with a tired arm or anything like that, so that doesn't bother me. But I feel it helps me develop my pitches, and that one falls in there. Boy, red hot for Mr. Luis Castillo, that's for sure. 3rd hit already today. But I asked about the arm strength thing and the tiredness. I said it's not a factor. I just do it. I feel like in the regular bullpens, it's my time to kind of nitpick. I get some advice from the coaches, and I can analyze. And then the next day, I just kind of grip it and rip it and throw it. So it's something we'll see if he continues to do it. He started to do it last year. Ricky Bonas down in the Mets system kind of advised him on it. He likes it. One of those things we'll track going forward, and we'll see how it affects him tomorrow in his start against Cliff Lee as Castillo goes, and he's in there. Guys, back to you.
Stole the base for Castillo, his 14th of the year. Is he feeling it right now?
Well, I guess they just knew that Pedro fell asleep. That little curveball around the plate. Ruiz doesn't have a shot at Castillo. Easily steals the bag.
Yeah. Castillo 3 for 3 this afternoon. Now 20 for his last 37. His average up to 322 on the year. Down to first base. It comes up on Howard, but he stays with it. A productive out for Murphy moves Castillo over to 3rd. I thought it was interesting what Kevin was talking about with Parnell, because here's a guy who over his last 2 starts has had a very encouraging effort with 6 scoreless innings, and then in his next outing got hit around a little bit. Didn't have much help from his defense, but those are all parts of a young pitcher's development as he now moves through this stage where he gets back into starting again.
Yeah, I think it's great that Kevin's going to watch that. I think that Bobby Parnell is going to be an outstanding starter. He's got all the pitches to do it. The thing for him is really just making that adjustment from coming and trying to power his way through 1 or 2 or 3 hitters to now having a game plan that spans over the course of 2.5 hours out there on the mound.
Infield back for Francoeur with a runner at 3rd, and he lifts one to shallow center. That's playable for the second baseman Brundtland. No chance for Castillo to score. And that's the 2nd time already in this game the Mets have had a runner at 3rd with less than 2 out and failed to get him in. Sullivan struck out in a similar circumstance back in the 1st.
And Ronnie, I think something that Parnell said, which I thought was interesting coming out of his mouth. He said, for me, it's also about learning. It's not always about the result. He's like, I really, truly did feel good throwing the ball against the Giants, and I thought I pitched okay. But, I can't get away from that because of the result and think it was an awful outing. There are a lot of things from that outing that I can take going forward, and I thought that was pretty good on his part.
Is that a good thing, or is that maybe not a not so good thing, Ronnie, that a pitcher who gives up 9 runs in 3 innings thinks, hey, I did okay?
That would be not a good thing, Gary. Personally, my feeling is that I know that what's hard is that what you say to the media is not always what you feel in your heart. So sometimes you want to downplay maybe what happened on the field. But I think, especially with the media here, it's much easier to Billy Wagner it, to just say, you know what, I was lousy. I was lousy today. We didn't play great defensively, but I should have made some pitches to get us out of some jams.
Sullivan hits one to center, driving Victorino back, and that retires the side.
Honesty always seems to work here in this town.
Pedro has his 5 innings in with the lead, 8-4 Philadelphia. This is Fios. This is big. Pedro Martinez has given up 4 runs and 7 hits, but he's topped out at 92 miles an hour. Pat Mish in relief at 88. Mish is going back out there for the 6th after working a scoreless 4th and 5th to face Victorino, Worth, and Howard, 2, 3, and 4 in the Philadelphia batting order. Victorino's been aboard 3 times, 2 walks and an infield hit, and he takes a strike. Mish looking much more effective than he did yesterday, ahead 0-2.
You know, the other thing I was going to address, Gary, and I was just talking about, that it's very hard when you're a young player sometimes to have the sophistication to deal with all the different media outlets out there. As Victorino goes down, nice pitch by Pat Mish. Little check swing here on the fastball away. I think it's also important, not as a young pitcher, to get locked into, okay, the team is not having a good year. I'm going to get 10 or 12 starts here, and it's all about improving and not about the result. That's you never want to think like that. It's always about the result. That's why this is professional baseball and not amateur baseball. Always is about the result. You always want to win every time you step on the mound. And I'm not saying that Parnell does not feel like that. You don't want to even go there in your head or enunciate that in any way.
And I think, to be honest, it's hard for teams as well as individuals. I mean, this is not the minor leagues. You're not developing players. I mean, when minor league teams work, they're working with the express purpose of developing players for the major league team to win. At the same time, it's nice if they win as well. But this is the major leagues. And, you know, Jerry Manuel expressed it again today in answering a question about something having to do with the rest of the season. He said, we're trying to win as many games as we can, but at the same time, you're also looking for answers to questions going forward, and that might affect how you manage a game, whether you leave a guy in a little bit longer or take an extra look at a younger player, which might affect your ability to win games.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree in the sense that you're going to make some decisions that you might not make if you're in the heat of the pennant race, but I'm just talking about individually. What's the thing we heard all day long from the 69 guys yesterday? Gil Hodges made us in the mode of today is the most important day that we'll ever have. And that's the mode of any winning team, is that you get to a point where you play 27 hard outs, and that every time you step on the field, you're stepping on the field to win a ball game. That it's great if you can, get your players to develop at the same time, but you're there to win the game.
2-2 to Jason Worth. And I guess then the question is, we talked about Oliver Perez and trying to figure out what to do with him as you go forward for next year. And, there are some other answers that the Mets can come up with, even though so many of their core players are absent for this final 39 games of the season. As Worth takes up an 3-2. And I guess the question is, what are you looking at? What are you trying to figure out going forward from here to the end of the year?
Well, Gary, I talked to Omar Minaya on that front, and he pointed out a couple different things as Jason Worth goes down there. And he said obviously there's many things we're looking at, but the main points to me were, number one, you started at first base with Daniel Murphy. He said, we're really looking at how a couple guys finish. Murphy, can he be our everyday guy? Can he be an everyday first baseman? And with that, I said, well, how do you get more power to this team, and can you live with a power position not having much power? And his answer was, well, we've got to get more power, there's no doubt. I don't necessarily have to have it there if I have it elsewhere in the lineup. So, I mean, to me, that says that first base and left field are really linked. And maybe that affects Angel Pagan in that development, too, whether or not he could be an everyday type player for this team.
Well, if he hits 2 home runs every day like he did today.
There's the power.
Howard hits one out to center field, and Pagan drifting back to grab it. And so Pat Mish very impressively with 3 scoreless innings in relief to keep his team around in this game. Mets come up in the bottom of the 6th, down 8-4. drinks and still being able to get a look at the game. Here's your Lexus National League scoreboard. Marlins and Braves. Third game of that series. Cody Ross having a big day for the Marlins, who lead at 5-4, still early in that game. The Reds, who fell into last place by losing to the Pirates yesterday, lead 2-0. Nationals having a big offensive day. John Smoltz for the Cardinals against the Padres later this afternoon. And the Giants and Rockies, with the Rockies now 2 games up on the Giants. Tatis drives one to deep left field, but Ibanez gets back there and grabs it one away. So Tatis' first pitch swing lines out to left, 1 out. Talking about that Rocky-Giants series, the Rockies have put Aaron Cook on the disabled list after he hurt his shoulder the other night. That is really a hurtful move for them as Sean Green gets up in the Mets bullpen.
It really is. He's one of those guys that they can depend on every 5 days. One of their good ground ball pitchers that pitches well in the stadium in Colorado.
Here's Brian Schneider 0 for 2 today. And he takes a strike. So Pedro Martinez now with his longest outing since joining the Phillies. Went 5 innings his first time out against the Cubs. A range-short 3 innings against the Diamondbacks on Tuesday. And now pitching into the 6th inning today.
Although I do believe Cook was injured coming down the stretch in 2007 when they got in.
It's true, and he even joked about that when he came out of the game the other day. He said, well, you know, they won without me.
He's the good luck charm.
Of course, you know, then they had the youngsters, Ubaldo Jimenez and Franklin Morales, emerge in their rotation, and Jimenez has become a big-time pitcher, yeah, whereas Morales is now working out of their bullpen. Anderson Hernandez on deck. It's a fascinating race, the National League wild card, because as it's popped a mile high in the air, and Rollins waiting for it to come down. 2 out. Because there's no team that is without flaws. I mean, you've got the Rockies and you know, their question marks now with their starting rotation with Cook. You got the Giants and their offense. You got the Braves, who have struggled for offense at times this year. The Marlins, who have trouble with their defense. I mean, you look up and down the line, and you know, there's no team that looks like a surefire bet. It's going to be a very interesting last 6 weeks. Anderson Hernandez takes a strike.
Well, the Braves are without McLeod now. That's on the disabled list. And Lincecum pitching today, so that gives the advantage to the Giants over the Rockies when they start later this afternoon.
And it's, you know, as a follower of the Mets, it makes you throw up your hands and say, what could have been?
Yes.
You know, if the Mets had all their pieces intact, they certainly could have competed in that group. Brundtland throws out Hernandez, and that retires the side. So Pedro Martinez, 6 innings under his belt, and an 8-4 Philadelphia lead. work is done. Of course, for Pedro, after he was spurned in spring training this year, he had to decide whether to return, and he talked earlier this week about why he did.
When I lost my dad last year, the last 3 words I asked my dad was, what do you want me to do? And he wouldn't answer, and then I said, I made it easier for him. I said, you want me to play baseball or stay here with you, because I have the option. You want me to stay here? And he said clearly no. And then I said, you want me to go play baseball? And he said yes. And I left, and I remember I got here, and the next day he was dead.
And if you remember, that was an incredibly emotional time for Pedro after his father passed away. And Pedro even said, you know, earlier this season when he was home, he said it was really nice being home during the year, as Castillo double clutches and then throws out Ibanez for the first out. And he said, you know, there were a lot of temptation keeping him close to home in the Dominican.
Well, I think also he was able to spend a lot of time with his mother and help her through her grief also. And I think that was good for Pedro. But I think what happens is when you're home for a long period of time, I think it's very difficult, and I think Pedro addressed it, to do the day-to-day work you have to do to make sure you're in shape when a team called. And he did do that.
Well, Pedro said that in his dealings with the Mets during the offseason and spring training, when he was trying to convince the Mets to re-sign him, he said, I told them I was healthy. I told them I was better. I was being honest with them, but they must not have believed me.
Well,
now that was part of the story. The other part of the story was that I think Pedro set his price fairly high. 2-1 to Phillies.
Well, he even mentioned that he was talking a little bit about that he was not willing to take a Tom Glavine-like contract. And Glavine's contract with the Braves, of course, was what? For $1 million, I believe?
$1 million if he made the big league team.
So similar to what Pedro has here with the Phillies.
Here's your chance to win 2 tickets to a game at Citi Field, presented by McDonald's and the new McCafe coffees made with fresh ground espresso. Call 1-866-414-2911, and if you're the 11th caller, you'll be loving it at Citi Field. 2-2 to Phillies, and he struck him out. Pat Mish with his 4th strikeout in relief. 2 out in the 7th.
How he's been getting the right-handed hitters out is this little changeup away. Watch it. Just that nice fade at the very end from Pat Mish.
Guys, all I'll say about Pedro is obviously he was an interesting guy to cover with the team, but I will never forget, as long as I live, the trip I took down to the Dominican Republic to see him in the offseason a couple of years ago. This was after a tropical storm had really decimated parts of the Dominican Republic, and he had a bunch of the people who lost all their houses and lost everything. They were staying at some of the school that he built, and I will never forget walking in there with him and seeing all these people that were so desperate, and seeing them raised up, and the cheers and the chants of Pedro the Great, and you know how he told them he's going to get them water and he's going to bring them food and he's going to rebuild their houses. You know, there's some things that you could read about, there's some things you could hear. When you see it firsthand, I can't even explain to you what it was like. I mean, the raw emotion in that place, and you know, seeing Pedro's face and the joy he took in generally helping those people. You know, it's something that doesn't get publicized. It's something that he was actually reluctant, you know, I think a little bit to have us there, because he was a little, you know, he didn't really want it for the publicity. But it was a great moment for me to see it, to be honest with you.
Brentwood pops one up. Well, there were a million little things that Pedro did in his 4 years here that no one will ever know about, that showed leadership and showed character. And we were privileged to be around him for those 4 years. There's no question about that. 7th inning stretch time at Citi Field. 8-4 Phils. This concludes tomorrow afternoon at 1:10 p.m. Mass transit is the faster, easier, and greener way to Citi Field. Visit Mets.com or call 718-507-TIXX for your tickets now. There's your line score brought to you by Capital One. What's in your wallet? Phillies put up a 6 spot and knocked out Oliver Perez in the first inning with 3-run homers by Jason Worth and Carlos Perez. Mets with a couple of homers by Angel Pagan to stay in it. The tour of Citi Field brought to you by Audi. Visit TriStateAudiDealers.com. And another nice crowd gathered on a cloudy Sunday afternoon at Citi Field. That's last night honoring their 1969 World Championship team, and what an incredible event that was. That's finishing up their 11-game homestand tomorrow with the final game of 4 against the Phillies. Should be a beautiful afternoon tomorrow. The humidity is supposed to be down and the threat of rain gone. Chad Durbin comes on in relief for the Phillies as we go to the bottom of the 7th.
Well, he had an outstanding season last year in their World Championship year for the Phillies. This year, not as strong, but still, he is a workhorse for these Philadelphia Phillies. And he has not allowed an earned run in his last 5 appearances on the road.
Jeremy Reed will pinch hit for New York, batting for Pat Mish, who did an extraordinary job in relief. 4 scoreless innings in his longest outing since June of last year. And Reed takes a strike. Angel Pagan, who already has 2 home runs today, waiting on deck. And a breaking ball in for a strike. 0-2 to Reed. Jeremy hitting a .254 on the year.
Jeremy's had one of the strangest seasons, hasn't he, Gary? Just it seems like every time there was a little slight opening, someone else would be called up, or when he was given that shot for 3 or 4 games there, he wasn't able to make the most of it.
Popped up in foul ground, and Phillies coming over for a look, but that's in the photo well. Here's your McCafe ticket contest winner. Congratulations to Nicole of Brooklyn, New York. You'll be loving it at Citi Field. Sean Green still working in the Mets bullpen under the watchful eye of Randy Neiman and Billy Wagner. Reed gets under one to right field, and Worth easing back. Plenty of room to make the grab. 1 away.
One thing we've seen here, though, the last month, as the humidity has picked up, the ball has traveled, especially in the day games.
And Worth all afternoon today has looked a little tentative out there, like he's having a little trouble tracking the ball. Of course, the sun is also a factor out there. Even though it's not a sunny day, you get that glare out in right field. So here's Pagan, another crack at a 3-home run game. Bluffing a bunt, takes ball 1. Hit an inside the park home run on a mental mistake by Shane Victorino in the first, and then hit a 400+ foot home run into the bullpen in the third. And now Durbin behind him, 2-0. Again, to reiterate, no Met in their 48-year history has ever had 3 home runs in a home game. Ever. Nice stop by Howard to retire Pagan. 2 out. Ryan Howard getting that big body down.
Well, like we saw in last night's game, is that Howard playing in for the bunt, but also he tends to like to hug that line a little more than most first basemen. That allowed him to make this play in the back end, but he has just improved. He's lost a little weight, so he is, his ability to get to the ball is much better this year.
So 2 out. Here's Castillo, who's 3 for 3 today. Louis' 6th consecutive multiple hit game. First time in his career he has done that. And he's got his batting average up to .322 for the season. Daniel Murphy on deck. 20 hits in his last 37 at-bats. He has gone back to being the Luis Castillo of 5 years ago. Offensively, There's a strike, 2-1.
The other Met hitter you really see like that is Wright this year would go on those kind of tears.
You know, talking about David Wright, we were mentioning before about Murphy and whether he's the long-term answer at first, and Kevin was relaying the thoughts of Omar Minaya that depends whether you get power somewhere else. Part of it's going to depend on David Wright.
Yeah.
I mean, if David's going to be a 10 to 15 home run guy, that affects what you do at other positions like first base and left field. But if he's going to be a 30 home run guy, then it's a different story. Ball 4, and Castillo's on base for the 4th straight time. A 2-out walk from Durbin.
Well, I think, you know, people have been talking to me about, you think they're going to move the fences in and all that kind of stuff. And I think this year would be the hardest year really to judge your Met ball club as far as hitting home runs, because they haven't had all their players playing this year. So I think, you know, it's going to be a 2 or 3 year project before you can really determine if these fences are too deep. But they don't seem to be too deep for the opposing club so far this season.
Yeah, well, not having Delgado and not having Beltran for long stretches of time. And, you know, David's season has been different. I mean, David hasn't hit home runs on the road either. Castillo runs, got a big jump, and he steals his second base of the day. Now Castillo feeling extra frisky today. 3 for 3, a walk, and now 2 stolen bases. That's his 15th of the year.
Well, I think that Durbin is just not paying any attention to him because of the 5-run deficit. Probably thinking that Castillo's not going to go, but now twice in a row off Martinez and now here off Durbin with a stolen base.
So an RBI opportunity for Daniel Murphy. The Mets are 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position today. Murphy trying to change that. Has a 2-0 advantage with Francoeur on deck. Mets down 8-4 in the 7th. And now it's 3-0. Pedro Martinez went 6 innings, allowed 4 runs, 7 hits, a walk, and 5 strikeouts. Allowed the 2 home runs to Pagan, but in position for his second win without a loss. There's a strike, 3-1.
Well, Murphy's got to get on here, huh? If he can get on, that gives you the Mets a real chance with Francoeur coming up.
Another question as you get later in this game is the availability of Sheffield. Whether he can pinch hit. Murphy hits one to left center. That'll get down for a base hit. Castillo comes around to score. And Murphy with the RBI single, his second hit of the day, cuts the Phillies lead to 8-5. So the Mets able to take advantage of the 2-out walk to Castillo and get him around.
Almost one-handed by Murph as he drops it in the outfield. And Castillo, once he sees it drops in, he knows he's going to score easily.
Almost missed third base looking over his shoulder, by the way. Here's Francoeur as Murphy dives back in.
Already done that.
That's right. That base has already been covered.
Or not.
Francoeur tripled in a run back in the first, and Durbin, after not paying attention to Castillo, who's a much more prolific base stealer, spending a lot of time on Murphy.
Francoeur still looking for his first hit off Chad Durbin.
Francoeur 0 for 12 against Durbin. 1-1 to Jeff. Mets were down 6-0 in this game before they ever came to bat. And thanks to some fine relief pitching by Pat Mish to keep them around, they've been able to peck away and get it to 8-5. 2-1. But they've got the same predicament here that they had a couple of times earlier in the game. Top 4 in the batting order have done a great job getting on base, but once you get past Francoeur, there's just not a whole lot down there at the bottom of the order the way the Mets are constructed right now. Swing and a miss at a high slider, and it's 2-2.
Well, Jeff's had a couple chances today with runners on base. His last at bat, the pop up with a man on third. And you see that ball just beating Jeff upstairs.
And Durbin keeps on throwing over.
Well, you know, the reason he's thrown over is that Murphy's getting a lead to such an extent that the play is close at first base.
Francoeur pops one up a mile high in foul ground, and that'll head back into the seats. Durbin has always been very tough on the Mets. Lifetime 2.05 ERA against the Mets. Just came back off the disabled list a couple of weeks ago after straining a muscle in his back. Again, the 2-2. Foul. Shorter lead for Murphy. And Francoeur pops it up right off the end of the bat. And Butler is there to grab it and end the inning. Mets chip one run away as Murphy drives one home. We head to the 8th. 8-5 Phillies. Brought to you by your Tri-State Volkswagen dealers. Visit tristatevw.com for great deals on new Volkswagens. Some of the crowd here at Citi Field hoping the Mets can come from behind in the last 2 innings. Sean Green will try and keep them around.
Sean pitched in yesterday's ball game, went 2/3 of an inning, gave up a run scoring double to Pedro Phillies.
Not featured in those numbers is one of the most intriguing stats for Sean Green. 53 innings pitched this year, 8 hit bats.
Yeah.
Carlos Ruiz leads off in the 8th inning. Ruiz hit a 3-run homer back in the 1st inning. 1 for 3 on the day. And I know he's a sinker ball pitcher, which means he's going to run that ball into the righties, but it's still a startling number.
Well, I think because it's never been like it's just grazing a hitter. Literally, it'll be a ball that will be a first pitch fastball that'll hit the batter in the backside.
Slow ground ball. Murphy wide to play it, and the overhead toss to Green, 1 out. So Green retires his first hitter. That's 10 in a row for the Mets bullpen. Great job by Pat Mish. 4 innings, no runs, 1 hit, no walks, 4 strikeouts for Mish.
And rebounding from yesterday. Nice job. I really liked his changeup and his fastball that he was throwing to the right-handers. Had a lot of movement down and away.
Now Matt Stairs, the 41-year-old slugger who's been struggling lately, his batting average down to .210. Stairs was intentionally walked as a pinch hitter in the game yesterday.
I saw Matt after the game last night. I said, "How you doing?" He goes, "Oh, other than not making any contact, I'm doing fine." He is just so self-effacing.
He's 0 for his last 21, and when you're primarily a pinch hitter, that's a long stretch. Batting average has gone from .283 to .210 with that 0 for 21 stretch.
I think what's going to help them, if they can sow the National League East up and continue to play the way they can, he might get a couple starts down the stretch, get some more at-bats.
Where can you play him at this point? Can he run in the outfield enough to play out there?
Well, right field and Citizens Bank Park you can play. It's so shallow anyway.
Well, you know what it'd be like? It'd be like playing Rusty in the outfield at the end of his career.
Rusty was the best.
What was the game he made that great running catch? Remember that?
Well, the game is that Davey kept alternating Rusty with the left fielder, kept going back and forth. I think it was Clint Hurdle. And they kept running back and forth, alternating depending on the hitter. So when Rusty was in right field, when a right-handed hitter was up, if the left-handed hitter come up, they would move Rusty to left field. And he was not too happy with it, I'll tell you.
The problem with that theory, of course, is that that's too much running.
That's exactly.
Ball 4 and Stairs is on.
So the catch he made was that he went down the right field line and barely caught it at the end of his glove and got amazing cheers from the crowd.
Brian Madsen up in the Phillies bullpen. He's set up yesterday for Brad Lidge and looking to do the same again today. Here's Jimmy Rollins. Led off the game with an 8-pitch at bat and then doubled into the left field corner. Oliver Perez then walked Shane Victorino, and after a 12-pitch at bat gave up a 3-run homer to Jason Worth, and the Phillies had 3 on the board before the first out was recorded. Down toward first, a foul ball.
Well, Rusty was on the team. Rusty used to always, when he got a base hit, I would always pinch run for him. And the first time I ever pinch ran for him, I was nervous, going out there to pinch run. He hit a single, was on first base. I run out. He looks at me like not the greatest look. Punches me in the chest and says, "Don't embarrass me." So that was the confidence I had there, standing on first.
I could just picture him saying that too. Just foul, and it's 0-2 to Rollins. Rusty has such great joy, but such great intensity.
Yes. Boy, he could hit, I'll tell you.
And back in the day, he could play right field too. Remember him in 1973, wrecking his shoulder, crashing into the fence in that series against the Reds.
Is he the only player, or is it just he's one of the players that has 500 hits with 4 different teams?
I believe he's the only one. Of course, came up with the Houston Colt 45s as a teenager, then went to Montreal where he became a legend, Le Grand Orange, to the Mets, and then to Detroit, and of course came back to the Mets at the end of his career. Gets away from Schneider and Stairs motors on down to second. So a wild pitch from Sean Green, moving the runner.
Wanted that sinker away, held on to it a little too long to Sean.
The view from out in the Mo zone behind Jeff Francoeur. I love that shot.
Yeah. Have you been in there?
Yes.
I went in there too, just to check out that view. It's pretty cool.
We had a Gary, Keith, and Ron event in the Modell's clubhouse earlier this year. Kids love the view from down there, right on field level. Looking from behind the right fielder.
Can you see into the bullpens also?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
By the way, there's one more Gary, Keith, and Ron event coming up this year. Second to last day of the season, October 3rd. That'll be out in the Big Apple seats in center field.
Nice.
And the fans who attend that event will get to go on the warning track during the national anthem. Yeah, we've got a few other things we're working on, too.
Great.
So go to GaryKeithAndRon.com if you'd like to be a part of that. All for charity. 2-2 to Rollins. Bounce down to first base, and Murphy makes the play for the second out as Stairs moves over to third. So 2 away. And now here's Victorino, who's been on base 3 times today with an infield hit and 2 walks. He scored a run. Also gave up a run.
Oh, yes, he did.
There was that odd play back in the bottom of the first inning when Pagan hit one to left center that lodged at the bottom of the fence. Victorino assumed it was a ground rule double, stopped. Pagan did not assume, kept running, and it was an inside the park home run. And that gets away, and Stairs will lumber on in with the 9th Philadelphia run. Second wild pitch of the inning for Sean Green, and the Phillies get a run without a hit.
You know, Gary, to go along with those 8 hit batters, this is now the 6th wild pitch that Sean Green has thrown. That's a play, though, that Brian Schneider will tell you that he has to make that play.
Now, we've talked before. Sometimes a pitcher will throw a fastball in the dirt and a catcher won't expect it, and you'll get that kind of reaction. But on a breaking ball like that, doesn't he need to be sliding over?
I think that was a fastball, in fact, Gary. But with Sean Green, I think you always have to remember to block the ball. Let's see. I don't know. Maybe it was a changeup. Yeah, but any kind of breaking pitch, you want to make sure that you have to anticipate that the ball is going to be in the dirt.
So a walk, a wild pitch, a ground out, and another wild pitch, bring home a run to make it 9-5. Now to Victorino. An exasperating year for Sean Green. He had a stretch in the middle of the year when he pitched very well and earned a lot of confidence. Got back into pitching 8th innings. But that's been fleeting. And he walks Victorino his 2nd walk of the inning.
Lost in the 3-run home runs here by the Philadelphia Phillies in his first inning for Jerry Manuel. It's just been another day with 6 walks by his pitching staff, and that's just something that's going to have to change at some point. I don't know if it's too late in this season to change it, but
6 walks today, 9 walks last night, 482 walks this year, the most of any pitching staff in the National League.
And arguably one of the biggest ballparks in baseball.
And that makes a difference because you figure you can challenge people here.
3-1, throw it on the outside part, take your chances.
Now Worth, who delivered the keynote today with a 3-run homer back in the first, hit it in a spot where nobody had hit one before, onto the porch of the Acela Club. Ryan Madsen continues to throw in the Philly bullpen. That's where Worth's home run landed. Great view from there.
I love that they probably thought they were safe up there having their appetizers.
Home run in your soup. Up the middle and a base hit for Worth. Victorino is going to scoot on over to third. The throw by Pagan. He may get him, but Tatis couldn't hold the ball. Victorino overslid the bag, but Tatis didn't have the baseball in his glove.
Boy, nice throw by Angel. A little too much air under it, but it was there in time, I think, and it looked like it handcuffed Fernando Tatis. Oh, you know what happened there is the ball came right over the head of Victorino, and it looks like he was in the way of the sight of that ball for Fernando Tatis.
So Worth has his 2nd hit of the day. 1st and 3rd and 2 out, and now Ryan Howard has gone 0 for 4 this afternoon. Hit the ball hard once, a line shot that Castillo caught in shallow right field. The other 3 times he's gotten under the ball and flied out to center. And Howard takes a slider for a strike. Well, the former Met Tyler Walker is up in the Philly bullpen now that they have a 4-run lead. Madsen has sat down. With Howard up, Tatis is playing about 30 feet off the line and back. That enables Victorino to take as long a lead as he wants off third base.
Here's your defense. Castillo back. Victorino way off the line at third base because Tatis is off the line.
1-2 to Howard. With a guy like Victorino, you wonder why you wouldn't take a shot at trying to steal home. He gets such a large lead with the third baseman playing where he is. He's just the guy to do it, too.
He is the guy to do it, but you cannot steal home with this guy at the plate. Most of the time when this guy is at the plate, you really just want to watch and see if he's going to hit it 550 feet.
Raul Ibanez on deck. Two. Tied him up. He went around strike three. The inning comes to an end, but on a wild pitch, the Phillies tack on a run and lead it 9-5. I've ridden that to a 9-5 lead as we go to the bottom of the eighth. Ryan Madsen will come on to pitch the eighth inning for the second straight day.
Well, he was outstanding yesterday. Got a couple of punch outs on that great changeup of his. Now has only given up 4 earned runs over his last 21 innings pitched. Those 22 appearances as he has righted the ship. Look at only 19 walks in 60 innings. That's a nice mark for a reliever.
Took him only 9 pitches to negotiate the eighth inning last night. Corey Sullivan, Fernando Tatis, and Brian Schneider to bat for the Mets. Sullivan's gone 0 for 3, drove in a run with a ground out, and he takes a strike. Little flare over short, and that'll fall for a base hit. So Corey Sullivan has his first hit of the afternoon, the Mets' 9th. And perhaps for the final time in a Mets uniform, Billy Wagner is getting ready in the bullpen. As has been widely reported, Billy has been claimed on waivers by the Red Sox, and the Mets have until 1 o'clock Tuesday afternoon to work out a deal with Boston for a trade, or they can pull Billy back and keep him for the rest of the year. Here's Fernando Tatis, 0 for 2 and a walk, and he hits one to right field. Worth chasing back, going back, gets there to make the catch. He's had a lot of balls hit in that area today, and that ball carried well to the opposite field for Tatis. 1 out.
Well, Worth's not used to having to run this far because usually those balls are over the wall at Citizens Bank Park. But now Schneider, Tatis driving that ball with power, just the wrong spot.
Schneider's got 0 for 3 today, 0 for his last 15, and 4 for his last 49. Down to 178 for the year. We started talking about earlier in the game that the report is out that the Mets will call up Josh Thole, who's their Double-A catcher when the roster's expanded September. Talk about things to look at the rest of the year. Tolley's a kid pretty raw in the catching skills, but has shown an ability to hit at every level he's been at.
Well, at some point, again, evaluating your talent. Is Omir Santos, who's had an amazing year this year, is he a #1 guy, or is Thole ready for the big leagues?
Or did they need to go somewhere else for a catcher for next year? And remember what the plan was a couple of winters ago. The Mets signed Yorvi Torrealba to a 3-year deal, only to, or they agreed to a deal, only to back out of it at the last moment, presumably because he had failed a physical. Number descends up in the bullpen. Sullivan running. The throw by Ruiz not in time. Boy, that was too close in a 4-run game in the 8th inning. But Sullivan did beat it for his 4th stolen base of the year.
This is a good pitch to throw by Ruiz, and just a little high. Boy, that was close. Like you said, Gary, maybe just got that hand in.
If you're going to run in that spot, you better make it. Schneider hits it to center field, chasing Victorino back. It's carrying well, but Victorino able to get back and grab it. Sullivan has to go back to tag, but he'll still be able to advance to third. So Victorino, after a long run, chases down Schneider's fly ball for the second out.
O'Brien's hit 2 balls right on the nose, one to right field that was caught, and then this one right on the nose to center field. Sullivan waits. Once he figures out that Victorino's going to make the catch, back to tag and proceed to third base.
So he's at third with 2 out, and now Anderson Hernandez, who's 0 for 3, hitless now in 17 at bats. Late swing foul, 0-2. The Giants are out to a 2-0 lead over the Rockies in the second. Edgar Renteria with a home run. So the Giants with a lead, and Lincecum pitching as DeCenz is up in the Mets bullpen. Giants trailing Colorado by 2 games in that wild card race.
Lincecum had really his worst start all year in his last start.
Probably pitched a no-hitter today.
Yeah, good pitcher's rebound.
1-2 to Hernandez. If he can keep it going, Gary Sheffield will pinch hit. Sheffield out on deck. Held out of the starting lineup today. Line the other way, base hit. That brings home Sullivan. Hernandez heads to second. And he's in with an RBI double. And now it's 9-6 Philadelphia. So Anderson Hernandez breaks an 0 for 17 skid with an RBI 2-base hit.
Well, trying to come inside on Anderson, missed his mark. Nice job by Anderson, just delivering that ball to left field. Again, another ball getting underneath that padding. I bet you they're going to have to relook at that in left center. Pagan's inside the park home run. That might have to be relooked at because it's not level all the way across as far as the grounds rule is concerned.
You noticed Ibanez went and played it.
Yes, he did.
Of course, he went and played the other one that Victorino allowed to stay there, throwing up his arms in anticipation of a call. So here's Sheffield to pinch hit, and Gary takes a big rip, 0-1. Sheffield is a pinch hitter this year, just 1 for 19. That one was a home run. Looking to get the Mets a little closer here, down 9-6 in the 8th. 1-1 to Sheffield. And Billy Wagner gets up in the Mets bullpen. Billy's made one appearance since coming back from Tommy John surgery, and it was spectacular. One from Madsen. Bounce foul, 1-2. Before this season, Gary Sheffield in his entire career had only 25 at bats as a pinch hitter. 9 for 25, 360. This year he's had 19 at bats already, and just, as we mentioned, 1 for 19. Madsen ahead of the count, 1-2. In the air to left, and Ibanez steadies. Side retired. Mets get a run on an RBI double by Anderson Hernandez, but we head to the ninth. It's the Phillies leading it 9-6. Nissan's bottom line model year sales event is going on now. Elmer Descends will pitch the top of the ninth for New York.
Well, Elmer's last appearance out, a perfect inning. We talked about that. He's done a nice job. He's pitching a lot of different roles for the Mets. Here pitching the ninth.
Descends worked a 1-2-3 inning in relief yesterday. Raul Ibanez leads off for the Phillies in the ninth. Ibanez 0 for 3 and a walk. And he takes a strike from Descends. Oliver Perez started for the Mets today, went 2/3 of an inning, allowed 6 runs on 4 hits, giving up two 3-run homers to Worth and Ruiz. Schneider coming back for a look, but that's out of play. Nelson Figueroa worked 2 1/3, allowed 2 runs and 4 hits in long relief, but then Pat Mish came on and worked 4 scoreless innings, allowing just 1 hit and striking out 4. Sean Green worked the 8th, gave up a run on a hit, and now Descends. Well, Kuz was in the ballpark last night, the real one, and he had Jerry up in the booth last night, and he, as always, was delightful.
I thought it was interesting that he talked about when Davey Johnson made that last out and Tayon Jones made the catch. It was so loud that he thought there was a chance that Davey hit it out of the ballpark.
Interesting. I was just thinking something about Davey making that last out of the World Series. Of the 3 World Series that ended at Shea Stadium, 2 of them ended on fly balls that you thought might be out of the ballpark. That one and Mike Piazza's fly ball that ended the 2000 World Series.
Wow.
That when it came off the bat, Mike and Bernie Williams and Joe Torre and everybody else thought it was gone. But Williams caught it, and that ended that World Series. Something about Shea in October.
That's right.
3-2 to Ibanez. Popped up. Right along the line. Tatis called off by Hernandez. 1 away.
Well, it makes me think, Gary, that Kuz got the last out in that complete game effort for the '69 World Series. And for our World Series, Jesse Orosco got the last out, and he was traded for Jerry Koopman.
Very interesting, isn't it? That was 1979.
Yep.
Koosman traded to the Twins, going back home because Jerry was originally from Minnesota, and Jesse Orosco coming to the Mets in that deal. I was thinking, you know, if Marty Barrett had made contact, I don't think anybody would have thought the ball was going out.
That's right. Well, what a series he had, though.
Yeah, he did. But Jesse struck out Marty Barrett to end that '86 World Series. Phillies to straightaway center, and Pagan is there to grab it. 2 out. Next Sunday on the Picks Game of the Week, the Mets head to Wrigley to take on Derek Lee and the Cubs. Don't miss an inning as the boys from the Big Apple look for a W in the Windy City. The Mets battle the Cubs next Sunday at 2, right here on Picks. Talk about a team that has had a disappointing season. The Chicago Cubs are now just 1 game over 500 for the season. Here's Eric Bruntlett, 3 for 4 on the day. Cubs started the day just 1 game ahead of Houston for 3rd place in that division, and now 8 games behind St. Louis in the Central, as the Cardinals are starting to pull away. In fact, the Cardinals now have the biggest lead of any team in the 6 divisions. And they'll have John Smoltz on the mound in San Diego. How intriguing is that? Eric Bruntlett pulls one just foul. In the bottom of the 9th, the Mets will have the top of the batting order coming up. One more crack for Angel Pagan, who has 2 home runs today. Luis Castillo and then Daniel Murphy. In a 9-6 game, you have to assume Brad Lidge will be coming on to try and save it. Bruntlett getting the start today with Chase Utley getting the day off, and there's Mr. Lidge all set to go. Drive to right center field. Francoeur laying out, and he missed. No, did he get it? They say no. They say he didn't. Francoeur is shaking and going to third base is Bruntlett. Francoeur says he caught it, and it looked from here as though he did, but the second base umpire Rob Drake said no. Francoeur just realized that he had made a safe call, and Jerry Manuel was going to come out to argue as well. Francoeur already had an egregiously bad call go against him on Friday night on a stolen base attempt. Let's see here.
Well, usually when you get up and argue like that, it means you know that you've made the catch.
It wasn't even close. Not even close. That's unbelievable.
To sell out like that, and look at his wrist fold over. Boy, he got lucky. It looked like, man, he might have really hurt that wrist. Knew he made the catch.
He didn't realize that the safe call had been made until that point. And now the umpires are going to confirm. And you hope that they overturn the call, because that was just egregiously bad. How many horrible calls can we see? It's just unbelievable against, not just against the Mets, against everybody. The base umpiring in Major League Baseball this year has been atrocious, and that's just another example. I mean, you never see a call like that blown. That wasn't close to being a trap. There was no question that that was a catch. Rick Reed on your right. The first base umpire is the crew chief. There's no replay here. You can only have replay on boundary calls, so it's up to the umpires to find out whether somebody got a better look. And now they say out. So they changed the call. And the inning is over. Well, good for them to get it right. Of course, Charlie Manuel's now going to come out and try and get an explanation for why they changed it. But unquestionably, Frank Gore caught this ball, folded over his wrist, and came up a little bit injured on the play. But at least he gets the benefit of the umpires overturning the call and getting it right. We go to the bottom of the ninth, 9-6 Phillies. Fresh with ground espresso now at McDonald's. By Lincoln for the best offers on the 2010 Milan. Visit TriStateLM.com. By Halloween 2, a Rob Zombie film in theaters August 28th. And by Lexus, who invites you to Lexus Golden Sales Event. Hurry, ends September 7th. Well, Jeff Francoeur laying out and catching that liner by Eric Bruntlett.
Boy, just pulled up that wrist in time because then it folds over. And then Francoeur, of course, knew he had caught it, came into Drake and said, boy, that was right in the glove. And Charlie Manuel gets thoughts because he's yelling for his player, Bruntlett, that has a hit taken away.
Ronnie, for the life of me, I don't understand it. I mean, we've talked about this so much this year, and everybody we speak to from other clubs is seeing the same thing that we're seeing in their games. The level of umpiring on the bases is just abysmal.
Well, what was strange there, Gary, is that both you and I, and we're up here in this booth, what are we, 500 feet away, 400 feet away, could see it from here. So that's, I don't understand how he did not get this right as Lidge comes in. But let's not lose in this. What a nice attempt and catch by Francoeur, who has shown again that he plays 27 hardouts for this team, showing that great hustle.
Well, let's see if the Mets can build off that here in the bottom of the ninth, down 9-6. Pagan, who has 2 home runs today, leading off against Lidge, who picked up his 24th save of the year yesterday. It'll be Pagan, then Castillo and Murphy. All have swung the bat well today. And if anybody gets on, Francoeur will get another turn. Down to first, right by Howard and down the line. Pagan heads to second. Worth digs it out of the corner, and Pagan easily will go to third. Well, Howard robbed Pagan of a base hit in a similar spot his last time up. This was an easier play, but Howard muffed it.
Kind of got it on the backhand. What he needed to do, it took a real bad arm that went through that 5-hole. Saw it on the backhand. That ball went right back, had a lot of spin on it.
But that's another ball that he could have gotten in front of. We saw one earlier that he played off to the side, and this time it cost him.
Yeah, you want to get your big body right in front of that ball to block it.
It's an error all the way on Ryan Howard. A 3-base error. His 9th error of the year. So the Mets have life in the 9th. Here's Castillo, who's 3 for 3 in a walk today. Infield back, of course. And he hits it hard, but right to Brundtland. Bobbles it. Recovers. Safe. Pagan is in. Castillo safe at first. Back-to-back errors on the Philadelphia infield. And the Mets will get the tying run to the plate in the last of the 9th.
Well, this ball hit awfully hard at Brundtland. No excuses there. Got to make that play. Give Louis some credit for hustling down that line. Boys, close play at first base. Bang, bang. Boy.
Looks like he might have got him by an eyelash.
Agreed.
Nonetheless, an error on Brundtland. Give an RBI to Castillo because the run was going to score anyway. So back-to-back errors. Now it's 9-7, and Murphy comes to bat as the tying run with nobody out. Murphy already a single and a double today, and he's driven in a run, 2 for 4. He has a 9-game hitting streak going. Well, what has been a difficult year for Lidge here, being betrayed by his defense.
And trying to give their star player, Chase Utley, an entire day off. It might have cost him there with Brundtland's play.
This is a Philadelphia defense that had committed the fewest errors in the National League starting play today. And Murphy hits one back toward the middle. Brundtland sliding, can't make the play. And now the tying runs are on base. That'll be a base hit for Murphy, but you know Brundtland thinks he should have made that play.
That's one of those where he needed the backhand. He could have scooted it over to Jimmy Rollins, and it looks like he was trying to make the play to second base before he caught that ball in the glove right up the heel.
So the Philadelphia defense falling apart in the 9th inning. And now the Mets have the tying runs on, and Jeff Francoeur coming up. Well, Jeff, who almost hurt his wrist making that catch in the top of the inning, now has a chance with one swing to give the Mets a big finish. Blowing away with the slider, 1-0.
Well, there's the catch. How about for these Met fans, the catch and a blast here.
Francoeur 1 for 6 in his career against Lidge.
Defense deep in the outfield. No doubles.
And at the knees with a fastball, 1-1. Francoeur tripled to right center to drive in a run in the first. Since then, he's struck out once and popped up twice. Corey Sullivan on deck. Two errors and an infield hit, and the Mets have life in the 9th. 2-1 to Francoeur. Good knockdown by Ruiz. That keeps the tying run from getting to second base.
See Brundtland come in to talk to Lidge. They had Castillo picked off at second base. Louis getting a big lead, but Lidge not really paying much attention to him. And you watch a, of course, closer to be concentrating on Mr. Francoeur.
Two and 1 to Francoeur. Good breaking ball. 2-2.
Boy, you can see Francoeur wince with that left wrist. Misses this slider down. See that one-hand swing.
Lidge just trying to catch his breath. 2-2. The runners go. Line drive caught by Brundtland. He makes the tag. It's a triple play, and the ball game is over. An unassisted triple play to end the ball game. Unbelievable. With the runners going and nobody out, Brundtland, who had made 2 bad plays in the inning, has a line drive hit right to him at the bag. He stepped on second for the second out and tagged out
Murphy to complete the triple play.
Both runners going. That means that Brunlett's got to move towards the bag at second base. That allows him to not only make the catch, to force out on Castillo, and now, of course, here the tag play on Murphy. The unassisted triple play, and you've got to be kidding me.
Wow. Francoeur can only wonder. The last unassisted triple play in the major leagues was by Troy